Tension boiled over in Minneapolis after an immigration agent fatally shot a local woman, sparking protests and clashes with police near a federal building.
The officer fired during an encounter where officials claim the driver tried to hit them with her car. City leaders disputed that account based on video and demanded a fair probe. State officials said federal agents blocked their access to evidence needed for charges. Lawrence Keller reporting.
Iran's foreign minister declared in Beirut that his nation desires no conflict with the United States or Israel, but stands fully prepared to strike back.
He arrived for a two-day visit to Lebanon amid heightened tensions from recent U.S. bombings of nuclear facilities and Israeli killings of top officials. Iran remains open to talks on its atomic program if based on equal terms without demands. Officials stress that past attacks ended in defeat and vow readiness for all possibilities. Benjamin Wright reporting.
China blasted Japan's leader for comments hinting at military aid to Taiwan if Beijing acts aggressively. Joseph Eckerson reports.
The foreign ministry urged Tokyo to correct its errors and stop meddling in internal matters. Beijing imposed export curbs on items usable for defense and launched a probe into cheap chemical imports from Japan. A state group accused Japan of hiding nuclear goals and risking global stability.
This is the latest news headlines.
U.S. forces seized 2 oil tankers linked to Venezuela in bold ocean operations as President Trump outlined plans to sell the nation's crude.
The Navy captured 1 vessel in the North Atlantic and another in the Caribbean for breaking sanctions. Trump stated the U.S. would handle oil exports and ensure purchases of American goods with proceeds. Critics from Germany called the moves a values collapse, while polls showed split American views. Kyle Norris reporting.
States geared up for tough choices on health care and food aid programs after a major federal law shifted more costs their way.
Governors and lawmakers weighed options like work rules for medical coverage and handling extra administrative fees. Some areas planned to match tax breaks on tips, while others braced for cuts in benefits. Experts warned of rising uninsured rates and strained resources ahead. Jessica Oakley reporting.
President Trump stunned markets with surprise post barring big investors from buying family homes and capping defense firm pay until they speed up military deliveries.
Stocks tumbled as housing shares dropped sharply in response to the housing limit aimed at easing prices. Defense companies faced bans on dividends and buybacks under the new rules. Investors reacted with concern over the sudden policy shifts from the White House. Liam White reporting.
The Senate pushed forward a measure to restrict President Trump's armed actions in Venezuela.
5 Republicans crossed lines to join Democrats in advancing the resolution for debate. Trump slammed the move as harmful to national security on social media. Lawmakers sought to reclaim control over military decisions in the region. Kevin Sanders reporting.
And that's the latest news headlines with Alan Edwards.
This radio commercial was made to convince you to stop speeding. We can't use siren sound effects on the radio, so we'll use other equally jarring sound effects to get your attention. Like telling you that whether you drive a little over the speed limit or a lot, you can crash just the same. You could hurt yourself or worse, others.
I'm at the scene of the collision.
And the damage you cause will be beyond repair. See? We didn't have to use crash or siren sounds after all. Speeding catches up with you. Brought to you by NHTSA.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey. Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
As veterans, we're no strangers to helping others.
It's what we were taught, trained, and told to do.
It could be for anything. Helping a friend move.
Listening to a fellow veteran for hours, at any hour of the day.
Or just simply making time for people. A neighbor, a loved one, or even a stranger.
We're often the first to help others. There's no question about it.
But we do have one question for the veterans listening.
When was the last time you reached out for help?
Perhaps it's time to do for yourself what you would do for others.
If you or someone you know needs resources, whether it's for stress, finances, employment, or mental health, don't wait. Reach out.
Find more information at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Karen, owner of Lone Star Transfer. If you're a timeshare owner, getting out is probably a top priority. And now that annual maintenance fees are coming due, this ongoing burden and expense is at the top of your list. Thankfully, we can help. Let us do for you what we have done for thousands of others across the country. Our process is done legally, ethically, and quickly. Lone Star Transfer has a 99% success rate and an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau. We are a family-owned business and will personally make sure your experience is a pleasant one. Don't let another day go by with maintenance fees taking your hard-earned money. Give us a call for a no-obligation consultation at 844-284-4863. That's 844-284-4863. Or online at LoneStarTransfer.com. That's LoneStarTransfer.com.
Live. This is the Jeff Santos Show on the Revolution Radio Network. Rebuilding America. Together. Investing, activism, and supporting the middle class. Now, here's Jeff.
Thank you, Jalen, and good afternoon, Americans, and welcome to the Jeff Santos Show. It's a Friday edition of the program, so I'll have a little bit of fun, a little sports action, and, well, talk a little sports, not really action. So we're going to look forward to all this and take your phone calls, of course, at 833-545-5333. Shout out to our good friend Mark. Hang in there, my friend, a little under the weather today. And hopefully back in the saddle again on Monday there at KCAA. We got a great program for you today, kind of international in a sense, and hopefully everything will work out wise with the communication. But we're going to start off today, as normally on Fridays, with Alan Grayson, former representative from the great city of Orlando, Florida, served two different districts, actually. Including the first Democrat to represent downtown Orlando. A lot of money there, and, you know, it's a whole different thing. Democrats don't usually do well there. But he did, and that's why we have him on. And going to have a lot of questions for him today about how Democrats go forward. The issue of impeachment has come up. Heard Jim Roosevelt yesterday, not a fan of this. I think we got to keep it in our toolbox. It's not going to happen right away anyways. But next year, I would be very much, particularly if we win the Senate, we got to use that as a tool. Why not? Why do we want to stay with a psychopath who's bribing the oil companies today to have him look good? We'll get into the economy in a minute. Brought back my Dunkin' Donuts coffee bag here because it's still. I went yesterday to the local grocery store. It went down $1, so it's now $13.99 from $14.99. It was $7.99 just a few months ago. Thank you, Mr. Trump, and your terrible economy. You only created 50,000 jobs. Our friends at MS Now had on one of their better economists, and he's saying that 50,000 jobs, Canada produced more than that. Canada, small country, geographically massive, but population-wise, it's Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Ottawa, not much in terms of population there. That's it. And, there are other countries and other cities, Halifax and, Winnipeg, but they're very, very small, Edmonton, Calgary, etc. But when Canada outproduces you, doesn't that say something? And the graph, which we'll talk about in a few minutes too, it went from creating 800,000 jobs in 2022 to almost nothing. That's the guy you want with the Congress that rubber stamps everything he does, including the tariffs, including all the other issues, never mind the Gestapo folks, which we'll get into as well. So anyway, so Grayson is with us today at 3:33. Then we'll talk a little football, big weekend. Got my Patriots championship from 2001 on today. Rooting on the Patriots. Play on Sunday night late, 8 o'clock Eastern time. We'll talk to Patrick Claybon of the NFL Network at 4:06. Then at 4:33, and this is the communication issue, we're going to be talking to Greg Palast, gregpalast.com, fantastic journalist. Used to work for The Guardian, great on voter suppression, and really good on Venezuela. We've been trying to get him the last couple of days, but he's in Portugal. So we will hopefully connect with him at 4:33 Eastern. That's 9:30 in Lisbon. Then we'll chat at 5:06 with Kevin Paul DuPont of the Boston Globe, the great sports writer, sports columnist, hockey writer for several decades, going back to the late 70s and early 80s with the Boston Globe. And he actually worked for the New York Times as well, covering the Islanders in that 80s period where they won 4 cups. So we'll get a good perspective from not only a good hockey guy, but a great writer and really excellent soul. Good man. Then we'll wrap it up with MTC, as we always do on Friday. Mark Taylor Canfield, activist, journalist, executive director of Democracy Watch News, and, of course, the Renaissance Man on the Jeff Santos Show. I think he's going to lead with his guitar again. So anyways, as I said, I feel like if you are an independent voter and you looked at the last year of where this country has gone economically, where it has gone in terms of ruining friendships, where it has gone in terms of making us more vulnerable, you know, when you invade a country like we did with Venezuela, and I understand we didn't bring in tanks and, bombs and all that kind of stuff. But when you take a leader of a country and you have no plan, no game plan to follow up, you think that everything is just going to, it's going to go away, we're going to make some money and everything. No. You're creating a cesspool of potential terrorists. Because people, do things that we define in the terror category if they think that the current government, Ms. Rodriguez, is in cahoots with Trump, and they're not getting their basic needs. Where do you think this is going to go? Another reason why you don't want American troops on the ground in Venezuela. Okay. Now, what we're dealing with in Minneapolis, and again, Portland yesterday, and who knows what's next. There needs to be, and I love what Mr. Walz did in terms of the National Guard in Minneapolis. MS Now has been doing some good work, and they interviewed a guy today who can't believe his father fought in World War II, where the country is going. America needs to come together, and yes, we got to vote, and we got to vote, and we got to vote against Trump for the Democrats, and the Democrats need to continue to make the case that they are vastly superior and concerned about the working class, that they have the back of the working class, to have the back of the middle class in this country. And regardless if you're white, black, brown, Asian, straight or gay or trans, we have your back. Democrats have to do that, and they got to communicate it. They can't stand behind the walls and say, well, we're just going to win the election. It's affordability, blah, 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 blah. You can't do that. You need to be bold. You need to state what you're for and state what you're against. It's pretty easy to be against Trump on every facet of policy and just morality. The psychopath, I guess, spoke to the New York Times yesterday, and the Boston Globe picked it up from the Times. And he's saying, he goes, it's my morality that I'm going to judge by, not international law, because he doesn't respect anybody. My morality. My morality? The morality that, the third wife, that, domestic assault against a woman who was convicted of. I mean, give me a break. So you, American voter, you who may not necessarily follow politics every day, Maybe you're finding me by accident today if you're driving in Southern California or Boston or New York City. I'm like, who is this guy? What is he talking about? Well, if you think of it, I'm telling you that you have to make sure that the current occupant of the White House is defanged and he doesn't have the power to do what he is doing, foreign policy-wise, domestic policy with his Gestapo ICE agents, with his tariffs. These are all bad things for you, Mr. and Mrs. America, who is driving today, maybe on your way home for the weekend. Maybe you're still, at work and you had a lunch break. You can't sit on the sidelines. Oh, they all suck, Jeff. What are you talking about? Republicans are bad. Democrats are bad. They all suck. With that attitude, you're going to be living in a third world country, my friend, because there is a difference. Yeah, there are some Democrats who do suck, but 95% of them do not. Republican Party, on the other hand, has been brainwashed, bamboozled, and basically is, been hollowed out by the Trumpies. So your choices are the Democrats, but the other choices are to make sure that the Democrats get you, understand you, and you can have an opportunity in primaries. Some of them will be open, to pick the right candidate. So there are a lot of different ways, for you to get engaged. And I keep saying this because it's going to be people power. Alex Lawson said this the other day. He's not going to trust in politics and politicians, even though there are very good ones. He's going to trust in the overall people. Again, our friends at MoveOn.org, our friends at Indivisible in particular, who led the organization of the No Kings marches. So when you have this kind of passion and leadership, Indivisible should be in contact with the Democratic Party, frankly. Make sure they're organizing, they're getting everybody out. Young people, older people, seniors, middle-aged folks, people who have just been laid off. Unemployment has gone up under Trump, too. His approval rating is 35%. Only person I think that is lower was Richard Nixon post-Watergate. So there you go. And after what happened this past week, Mr. Trump may be in the 20s. So there really is no excuse. If you were brainwashed by Trump, wake up, smell the coffee. And again, it's time. And we looked at some of the polling in the last 24, 48 hours, and, you have chances if you can make sure these votes count. I'd invite in the UN, if Trump would allow it, to monitor some of these elections. And I tell you, they'll find a lot of stuff, a lot of chicanery, a lot of things that are outrageously illegal, particularly in people of color. But Trump is under 50% in Texas, in North Carolina, in Georgia, in Florida, where his new home is. Of course, grew up in New York, still has the place on Fifth Avenue. So when you look at this, you have an opportunity, Mr. and Mrs. America, Jack and Jill America, to say, we've allowed other people to make the decisions for us. The wealthy, the well-connected. Now I got to get involved. Maybe if you are looking at it from a perspective is that you put your kids through school from the first, few years or whatever, but you never really got involved. You never really went to the parents teachers conference. You never really, got involved. You just let the system take care of itself. But you decide to get involved. And it's the same thing with voting. It's about being engaged, being more informed. You know, Sebastian Mancuso, a great comedian, talked about the fact that he went in to see Hamilton. And he and his wife, and this is what he's saying, I think he's a lot more aware of things than he let on, but it's in the comic sketch. But this is an example of a lot of people. People will have enough money to go and see the movie Hamilton or the play Hamilton. And he had no idea what it's about. And, you know, that there were black actors playing these folks, that Alexander Hamilton in real life was not black, African American. But, you know, the concept, and this, again, is more of a character. I don't think it's the real thing. Who knows? Could be, but I doubt it. The fact is that you can't be blind to what is going on in this country and then say, if you have a visiting relative from the UK or Canada or wherever, they're going to say, what are you? You an idiot? You're not paying attention to what's going on? So that's why you have to be engaged. And you got to find a better way. And I think the only party you have any chance of changing is a Democratic Party. And if you're not completely, oh my God, they're fantastic. What else is, sign me up, Jeff. If you are not enamored with all the candidates the Democrats have, then work for those who you are enamored with. Look, the biggest city in the world had a chance to put their former governor, Andrew Cuomo, in the mayoralty. They had a chance to pick people who were relatively unknowns as well. And then one guy with a name that's hard to pronounce, Mamdani, came out of nowhere, took on Wall Street, took on powerful interests from AIPAC to the real estate lobby, and because he's involved with housing in New York City. And he said, okay, bring it on, without being like putting his chin out there. And he did. So if you think that, I'm not going to get behind some unknown guy, and put my $20 or, make phone calls or whatever. Well, he won the primary. He built up his numbers to where he won. I think he had in the 50% of the vote with all the pressure, and he still pulled it off. So you have somebody like Mamdani. You have somebody, like a lot of these other Democrats that won, both New Jersey and Virginia, copied Mamdani on the economic side of things, the affordability issue. That to me shows you something. And it shows me that Democrats hear the voice of a progressive candidate in Mamdani. And they hear the voice of a fighter in Gavin Newsom. You're not going to kowtow. Okay. Oh my God, Donald Trump. He's a bully. What are we going to do? Who are we going to call? Ghostbusters? That's 1984. Shows you my generation. Anyways, so what ends up happening is that people got behind Mamdani. Gavin Newsom said, not on my watch. We're not allowing Gestapo tactics to come into Los Angeles. A few weeks later, they're gone. I'm not saying they're not going to come back, but he took them on. And he became sort of the figure that everybody said, this is the guy I want to challenge Trump. Now, again, if you're new to politics, Trump can't run for a third term. He's already won twice, can't do it anymore. He's already run 3 times, technically. So he can't run, for re-election this time. It's illegal. Now, he tries to do it. It's because he has basically turned this country into a dictatorship and then we all should run for the hills. But there is opportunities here. I mentioned Newsom on the west, Mondani on the east, and a lot of people in the middle. There's Plattner in Maine. Very fascinating guy. You have a lot of candidates. There are supposedly, I think, 3 progressives in Iowa who could be the Democratic nominee who could win. Again, another state, red state, where Trump is underwater. That's a state that Obama, an African-American, Barack Hussein Obama, twice on the ticket, 08 and 12, won both times. Comfortably. It can be done. There's a streak of populism in the voters' minds in Iowa, in a lot of places in the Midwest. You talk to our good friend John Nichols or Robert Craig or Earl Ingram, all Wisconsin guests that we have on the show on a weekly basis. Wisconsin, I think, on the northeast border of Iowa, it connects there. So, it's a Midwestern flavor. It's rural, and you got to connect those voters. You can't be a Northeast lawyer tied to Wall Street and connect with folks in New York and in Iowa. And you can't be a Hollywood star in Los Angeles and connect. So you got to have real people. I'm not saying that George Clooney, who grew up in Kentucky, not too far away from Iowa, couldn't go there and not only win votes if he wanted to run for office, but he can be utilized. But again, he grew up in Kentucky. Somebody who grew up in Los Angeles and doesn't really understand the Midwestern issues of a farmer, then that's a different story. Now, if you grew up in L.A., but you spent a lot of time in the Central Valley, which is the breadbasket of America in a lot of ways, then that's a different story too. So you can't just pigeonhole anybody because they're New York or LA. And again, there are a lot of different ways to do this. But I think that the Democratic Party, if they're smart, talks about issues that affect farmers, talk about issues that affect people who have been working at a company for 20 years and now companies laid them off because they're relying on AI. It's another issue the Democrats got to play with. You can't be taking money from the Musks of the world and others who are, going to drive labor down and out, and AI is going to take their gig. And they can be fooled because they can mask what people are saying. So all of this you have to keep in mind, folks. 833-545-5333 is the phone number to join us. Jalen will let us know. We have any callers. I just want to also say one more thing that I think is sort of important. If you are a parent or if you are a college student, and we're going to have one of them on Monday, our good friend Prescia, who's in her college break right now. And the way I see this, you have the future in front of you, and you are preparing, if you're a parent, if you have kids, for their futures. And you have to do everything possible to make sure that we are not a failing country, that we are not leaving the democracy, which everybody wants to be, who came from all over the world to this country. It's changed in the last 20 years, and Trump has a lot to do with that. But this is why it's so important for you to be engaged. All right, Alan Grayson is next. You're tuned into the Jeff Santos Show. We're back in a flash.
This radio commercial was made to convince you to stop speeding. We can't use siren sound effects on the radio, so we'll use other equally jarring sound effects to get your attention. Like telling you that whether you drive a little over the speed limit or a lot, you can crash just the same. You could hurt yourself or worse, others.
I'm at the scene of the collision.
And the damage you cause will be beyond repair. See? We didn't have to use crash or siren sounds after all. Speeding catches up with you. Brought to you by NHTSA.
We all know about the speed of sound, but have you ever thought about the sounds of speeding? If you drive over the speed limit, there are lots of sounds that you might hear. You could hear the sound of your vehicle crashing, the sound of first responders desperately trying to save you. You could even hear the sound of people crying at a funeral. Because if you drive over the speed limit, you could do damage that's beyond repair. One way or another, speeding catches up with you. Paid for by NHTSA.
And we're live here outside the Perez family home, just waiting for the... And there they go, almost on time this morning. Mom is coming out the front door strong with a double-arm kid carry. Looks like Dad has the bags. Daughter is bringing up the rear. Oh, but the diaper bag wasn't closed. Diapers and toys are everywhere. Ooh, but Mom has just nailed the perfect car seat buckle for the toddler. And now the eldest daughter, who looks to be about 9 or 10, has secured herself in the booster seat. Dad zips the bag closed, and they're off. But looks like Mom doesn't realize her coffee cup is still on the roof of the car. And there it goes. Oh, that's a shame. That mug was a fam favorite.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Just nail the big stuff. Like making sure your kids are buckled correctly in the right seat for their age and size. Learn more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Hi, I'm Karen, owner of Lone Star Transfer. If you are a timeshare owner, getting out is probably a top priority. And now that annual maintenance fees are coming due, this ongoing burden and expense is at the top of your list. Thankfully, we can help. Let us do for you what we have done for thousands of others across the country. Our process is done legally, ethically, and quickly. Lone Star Transfer has a 99% success rate and an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau. We are a family-owned business and will personally make sure your experience is a pleasant one. Don't let another day go by with maintenance fees taking your hard-earned money. Give us a call for a no-obligation consultation at 844-284-4863. That's 844-284-4863. Or online at LoneStarTransfer.com. That's LoneStarTransfer.com.
Supporting the middle class. This is the Jeff Santos Show.
To listen more to what the constituents.
"33 minutes past the hour. It is the Jeff Santos Show that you're tuned into. Coming to you live from the South Coast here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We're going to be traveling down Interstate 95 to see if we can get Congressman Alan Grayson on the phone momentarily. Just a couple of things to add to the concerns that I have about the Trump administration remaining in any kind of power. In other words, can you take the power away by, getting a couple of Republicans like Massey and Bacon to say, I'm going to go with the Democrats. This is ridiculous. This country is going to hell in a handbasket. And I think Bacon is actually retiring soon. So there you go. Those two could go over. Maybe that's enough. With some of the illnesses and others places in the Republican Party, you could remove Johnson and Jeffries could take over. That's one way. Then obviously, there are ways which you can coerce other Republicans to vote with Democrats, as they have in the last 48 hours on Venezuela, on the ACA extensions to continue the ACA subsidies, Affordable Care Act, that is. So you have a lot of different ways to do this. And of course, next year, if you win the House and Senate in November, you can begin impeachment hearings. And, Democrats, we're going to spend all the time. Well, the problem is that you had Republicans like McConnell who wouldn't vote and so forth. And of course, the first time he did it in 2018, 19, whatever it was, 19, I guess it was, when you had the impeachment there, the problem was he didn't have the Senate. So that's why you have to do the impeachment if you have the House and Senate. That's a priority. Okay. The other part of this is that you need to build up, and this is to me the most important of them all. You have to build up the idea that Republicans stand for the 1%, that they don't have your back, that they're basically giving you a middle finger every day that they're in office to somebody who makes 40 grand a year. Screw you. That's what they're saying to you. Of course, they'll smile and say, oh, we understand your pain. Please. Somebody who knows how the Republicans work is our next guest. He comes to us from Orlando, Florida, where he served 2 different districts. He is a fighter for the working class. He is Mr. Alan Grayson. Alan, Happy New Year, sir, even though it's been a tough start for a lot of Americans. I welcome you to the show, my friend. Happy Friday.
Thanks. It is hard to be happy when somebody named Good is murdered in the streets by someone under a cloak of government authority.
Yeah, it really
hard
is.
Time to be happy.
Well,
that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to kill the good in all of us.
Yeah, they're trying to basically end democracy and end America in the year 2026, and they started in 2025, and this is the sad part of it. And I think Democrats, as the opposition party, and people in general, have to come together and make sure that this man has as little power as fast as possible. Now, yesterday, we went back and forth with a bunch of people. The front page of the Boston Globe, had the word impeachment. And there are, some, and, the way the headline wrote is that, quietly, Democrats look at the word impeachment. Now, as somebody who follows politics like I do, and obviously you do, and a lot of our listeners and viewers, you can't impeach him with the Republicans in control. And even though some Republicans have gone over and done the right thing, it wouldn't be enough, particularly in the Senate. So it's not something that's immediate. But to me, we were talking with Jim Roosevelt yesterday and a whole slew of others. And, people are very nervous. Oh, you can't do this. The Third Way, that group that founded by the Clintons and all that stuff. They're like, oh, you can't do this. It takes up too much time, and it could cause the House to go the way. Well, no one should be doing it this year because you don't have the power this year. Now, if somehow Jeffries becomes the speaker this year because, Massey and Bacon and maybe somebody else decides to flip, then, you could begin it. But you can't do it because of the Senate, which is also useless. But it's just a tool. And to take it off your box, particularly in 2027, doesn't make any sense to me. Now, I don't think that we should just focus on impeachment. I think the most important thing, Congressman, and is the idea of promoting the fact that the Democratic Party is the party that will help the working class, that the Democratic Party, has your back, that the Democratic Party understands where this country is going, to hell in a handbasket, to a dictatorship, that they believe in civil rights, they believe in voting rights for everyone, regardless of color, regardless of skin, regardless of sexual orientation. And that's what they got to say. And they got to do this, and they got to talk to the farmer, talk to the working class cab driver, the person who is, working in a restaurant behind in the kitchen, maybe a Latino who's an undocumented worker, but on his way to a green card or on his way to being an American citizen, whatever. That's what I think they have to do. Your thoughts, my friend? It's a big part, but it's a new year. You have to have big, bold ideas, I think.
Well, first, I agree that the Democrats are the party that cares about human beings, and the party that will educate the next generation, and the party that keeps us as healthy as we can be, and the party that builds our roads and our schools and our bridges, and lets us get through daily life in some manageable, functional manner, and also keeps us safe. We have had a Republican sheriff in Orange County for about 40 years, and we're doing fine. I don't think, though, that actually is confronting the problem and confronting the worldwide problem now with far-right fascists rising in the polls in almost every democracy in the world, and sometimes rising to power, like in Hungary. And recently also in the Netherlands. The reason why that's happening is because their political dialogue is different from our political dialogue. And their political dialogue is hatred and fear of people who are different from you.
Yeah.
So you can repeat over and over again until you're blue in the face that the Democrats are going to have better pensions for people, better Social Security, better health care, better schools, and you're not speaking their language.
No.
Their language is...
People are going to turn you off because you're too boring.
Brown people who want to steal your stuff is their language. And it's not that it's boring to them. I mean, it's not that you're somehow...
Well, if you're listing a laundry list, it's boring.
Yes, if you're listing a laundry list,
it's
boring. Yeah. But as I said, you pull it all together by saying the Democrats are interested in you as a human being with human needs, the things that we all share. Every single one of us gets sick. Every single one of us gets sick. So who is it that's going to do something about that? Is it going to be Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? I don't think so. It's going to be the Democrats. They try to steal our clothes from time to time that way, but they always fail because the Republican health care planners don't get sick.
Right.
But to get back to the other side of what I was saying, I think the more important and more urgent answer to come up with concerning what you say and what you do is to address their concern that immigrants are eating their cats and dogs and other things that seem to be, generated almost at will, conjured up from unreality by Stephen Miller and his fever dreams, and by Fox News and their fever dreams. And I think it's in order to make progress and get beyond whatever 52% margin we're going to have in the House next year, and 49% margin we're going to have in the Senate. In order to get past that point and to break the fever in America, you have to address that. You have to get at their pressing the panic button in people over and over and over again, and explain what is wrong with that. Which is more likely to happen in your life, that your Social Security is going to get cut, or you won't be able to see a doctor when you're sick, or that some Honduran is going to eat your cat? Which one of those two things or three things is more likely in your life?
Right. And if you believe that Haitians or people from El Salvador or whomever is going to eat your cats and dogs, then, I think you should, take a step and realize, the reality. But then again, a lot of people believe in UFOs. So there you go. All right, here's something.
I think you should also let voting card lapse, because if you're that disconnected from reality, what's the point of voting?
Right. Here's something.
Unless you vote for somebody who's not on the ballot.
We're chatting with Alan Grayson here on the Jeff Santos Show. For those who are on video at thejeffsantoshow.com, courtesy of YouTube, I'm holding up my Dunkin' Donuts bag. I went yesterday to pick it up, Alan, because I like my D&D. And it went up from $7.99 in October to $14.99. It went down $1, $13.99. You know, people need to talk about politicians, and we've had on several of them, elected officials right now, and I've yet to have anybody take me up on this. But, you know, this is Massachusetts, born Dunkin' Donuts, Quincy, Mass. But the fact is that it's a national company, so you can use it anywhere in the country. And I think you got to be able to talk to people. You know, a lot of people in America, I say, I don't know, 90%, I don't really, you know, look at the coffee, people who drink coffee every morning, but it's probably a good amount of people. And if you can tell them that Trump's tariffs have caused, you know, your cup of coffee, or in this case, the pound of coffee that you make at home to go up, then that to me is a real point. And it's just not coffee, it's groceries, it's gasoline, it's the whole thing. And I think you got to be where they are and where somebody who makes 40 grand a year is. And I think that the American political person who talks, you know, with the idea of, you know, your cost of coffee, your cost of healthcare, your cost of housing, all those things, I think will win the day. I think one of the reasons why Mondani is where he is, or why Gavin Newsom is where he is, because he's talking and they're communicating with people in different ways, in different states, different cultural ways of living in the West Coast and New York City, where of course you grew up. But to me, that's what it is. If you communicate and you communicate with folks, I mean, in Mondani's case, he takes a bus that smells the highly heavens, and, you know, he's talking to the woman who also smells that same bus. She takes it every day to work, and it's always late. And he's, you know, he's going to have a faster bus. That makes a difference to somebody in New York City. It may not mean to somebody anything in Iowa, because a lot of people don't travel by buses in Iowa. So to go to work, that is. So, you know, I think it's there. I just think it's commitment to it. And it's, you know, getting away from this whole DC consultant class, run a 30-second commercial. Trump is bad. You know, prices are up. But, you know, they don't define it enough. And that's why supporting shows like mine, you know, every day, 3 hours a day, telling people what the heck's going on, to me is also a critical piece, because Republicans have that in spades. You know, I mean, it's 24/7 in every city in the country, including the progressive ones in Boston and San Francisco and New York City. So I think that's where they need to figure out that communication direction. I don't know if you agree, but I'd love your thoughts.
I agree that what you're doing is an important part of fighting back against dictatorship and propaganda. And the fact that we experience propaganda the way a fish now experiences the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
It's all around us all the time.
Well said.
You turn your computer off, it's still there. You turn your phone off, it's still there. You turn your TV off, it's still there. And it's controlled entirely by the billionaire class. The only time things even seem to get interesting is when they start to fight with each other. And the only people who are ever going to save us from us are us. We have to find a way to communicate with each other. People were so sure that the internet would make it easier, but the billionaires are in control of all commercial propagation of information. Has actually made it much harder. It was easier for the progressive movement in the Midwest in the 1890s to communicate their thoughts, their values, their goals, their dreams, their collective sense of the common good, than it is for you or me to do it today, having all the means of modern communication. Twitter in particular has cheated us out of what could have been the world's stump speech location, and instead has turned into utter, complete, unadulterated or adulterated right-wing garbage.
Right.
And Elon Musk, whatever evil things he did, including the tens of millions of people from whom he cut off food last year, it's hard to overstate the evilness of him taking away our ability to communicate with each other. Harlan Ellison, back in the 60s, a great science fiction author, wrote a story called "I Have No Mouth, But I Must Scream." We all feel like that now. All of us feel like we have no mouths and we must scream. And the billionaire class has taken away our mouths.
Well, anybody who is not in favor, whether it's, you don't necessarily have to be in favor of a quote unquote piece of legislation called the billionaire's tax. But if you are not for taxing the 1% at a higher, much higher rate, or if you want to do the comparison to the 1950s under Eisenhower, Republican president, 90%. If you don't agree to that sort of level or close to it, then you're really not seeing the whole picture, and you're basically a greedy person and saying, I don't care about anybody else, just me, which is Donald Trump and people who like him. I don't care about anybody, it's just me. Take the oil and run, like you wanted to do in Iraq, if you listen to some of the old tapes. So I just think that has to be. I also think somebody who is, understanding. I mean, I don't agree with a lot of Clinton's policies, but as a political candidate, he was, I think, pretty damn awesome. I feel your pain. And, he could communicate with a lot of people, whether it was on a rope line, or that got him in trouble too, but, or on a number of other avenues. He wasn't he wasn't Jesse Jackson behind a podium, but he could, I think, connect with people. And, he won re-election. Now, he never had over 50%. But to me, that's an important part of it. But you have to have the policies behind it. Here's something for you. We're talking with Alan Grayson here on the Jeff Santos Show. We had on Gary South on our show in San Francisco. We have a show every Tuesday, and KSFO, soon to be in Los Angeles too, come in March. All goes well. And Gary South, who worked for Gray Davis from 99 to 2003, one term, was telling me, and I asked him the question, I'm going to ask the same one to you. In my opinion, the only way Gavin Newsom or a candidate like him can win the presidency is that Gavin Newsom, or the Democratic nominee, if it isn't a guy like Bernie Sanders or a woman like AOC, they have to come together, because it's the center left that has to be the driving force of the Democratic Party. I think, what Mondani did to destroy the Wall Street, Andrew Cuomo, Bloomberg type of candidate, I think now opens that door. And I believe that the Democrats can't win being Republican light, because look at what's happened. Look, this is a disaster. $14 for a pound of coffee. Gas prices through the roof, unemployment up. Canada created more jobs than the United States did last year. Well, Canada's pretty small, So I just think that has to be the coalition. Do you agree?
Which part of that would you like me to address?
The coalition part of the Mondani AOC burning wing with the Newsom combo.
Well, the problem is that most of the party has no sense of urgency and no goals, and nothing that reflects any understanding of the lives of ordinary people. So all of the vision and talent and drive and meaningfulness of politics, the sense of I'm for this rather than I'm against that, all of that seems to come from the left wing of the party, and it always has within the whole time that I've been alive and involved in politics, for sure. The third way is a plague upon humanity. They should all go to hell. And what they've done is castrate the party and make it as meaningful as a Seinfeld episode. They say about nothing.
Yeah.
So There's always going to be a need for people like Mondami who say, I think life can be better for all of us. There is such a thing as a common good, and I'm going to show you how it's done. Now, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but at least, even if you lose for a good fight. At least you tried. And what I see being wrong with the so-called moderate wing, which is the dead-headed wing of the Democratic Party, it's the part of the party that doesn't believe in itself or anything else and just wants to accumulate money more than anything else. It's the corrupt part of the party.
Yeah, more the corporate wing than to say of a moderate that's not Mondani or Bernie or, there are some moderates I think you've worked with that are good, but you mean the corporate wing, which is unfortunately involved in leadership, particularly in the Senate, and a lot of senators.
The corrupt sellout wing that relentlessly attacked people like me.
Yes.
When I was in office, people actually could make a difference. When I passed 121 laws in 4 years, more than any other member of Congress, and was attacked relentlessly by them. This is, you're always going to have your traitors, and these people are the what's happening now, I think, is that, as I said in the last time we spoke, there is a greater and greater recognition all the time of the concept of common good. And I think AOC well reflects that. What's her major legislative accomplishment? She got the government to pick up the tab for people who died of COVID. That was contributing for the common good. That's a tangible thing that she did. What does Mondani say he wants to do? He wants to make buses free in New York. Why is that a good thing? Because it will reduce pollution. If buses are free, there'll be more of them. The waiting times will go down. Traffic will go down tremendously, and so on. So what you have is a common thread of the fact that life can be better. You just have to make it that way. And that's really what the Democratic Party stands for. We're not the party of open borders. We're not the party of defund the police. We're not the party of any of that BS that the Republicans have tried to tag us with now for a generation. They have unfortunately gotten to decide who we are more than we get to decide who we are because they control the media. And
that's true.
That really has to end. That has to end because, in fact, we have the tools through democracy to make life better for all of us. Just look around. Who built these roads that we drive on every day?
That's right.
It wasn't the billionaire who built them. Who built the hospitals that you go to when you get sick? Wasn't the billionaire who built them.
Who built the schools?
Who built those schools that your kids go to? And learn how to become productive, self-sufficient people. A greater struggle almost every year. That wasn't the billionaires who did that. All the billionaires do is they try to hook you on TikTok and pharmaceuticals and less legal drugs than that, and basically steal your eyeballs from you until you're dead. That's their game plan.
Yeah, they could care less. They can put more money in their pocket, and that's all they care about. Alan Grayson, always great to talk to you, man. Great to have you back in 2026. Look forward to doing this on a weekly basis in 2026 with you. Need people like you in my foxhole. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate what you did in Congress, too. Thank you. We'll be right back. We're going to turn our attention to football. Big weekend in the NFL, and we'll talk that and, some of the social issues that are going on in the most popular sports league in the United States of America, and maybe in the world. I mean, the corrupt FIFA is obviously up there, too. We'll be right back. It's the Jeff Santos Show. Patrick Claybon on the other side from the NFL Network.
China blasted Japan's leader for comments hinting at military aid to Taiwan if Beijing acts aggressively. Joseph Eckerson reports.
The foreign ministry urged Tokyo to correct its errors and stop meddling in internal matters. Beijing imposed export curbs on items usable for defense and launched a probe into cheap chemical imports from Japan. A state group accused Japan of hiding nuclear goals and risking global stability.
Iran's foreign minister declared in Beirut that his nation desires no conflict with the United States or Israel, but stands fully prepared to strike back.
He arrived for a two-day visit to Lebanon amid heightened tensions from recent U.S. bombings of nuclear facilities and Israeli killings of top officials. Iran remains open to talks on its atomic program if based on equal terms without demands. Officials stress that past attacks ended in defeat and vow readiness for all possibilities. Benjamin Wright reporting.
Tension boiled over in Minneapolis after an immigration agent fatally shot a local woman, sparking protests and clashes with police near a federal building.
The officer fired during an encounter where officials claimed the driver tried to hit them with her car. City leaders disputed that account based on video and demanded a fair probe. State officials said federal agents blocked their access to evidence needed for charges. Lawrence Keller reporting.
This is the latest news headlines.
The Senate pushed forward a measure to restrict President Trump's armed actions in Venezuela.
5 Republicans crossed lines to join Democrats in advancing the resolution for debate. Trump slammed the move as harmful to national security on social media. Lawmakers sought to reclaim control over military decisions in the region. Kevin Sanders reporting.
States geared up for tough choices on health care and food aid programs after a major federal law shifted more costs their way.
Governors and lawmakers weighed options like work rules for medical coverage and handling extra administrative fees. Some areas plan to match tax breaks on tips, while others braced for cuts in benefits. Experts warned of rising uninsured rates and strained resources ahead. Jessica Oakley reporting.
President Trump stunned markets with surprise post barring big investors from buying family homes and capping defense firm pay until they speed up military deliveries.
Stocks tumbled as housing shares dropped sharply in response to the housing limit aimed at easing prices. Defense companies faced bans on dividends and buybacks under the new rules. Investors reacted with concern over the sudden policy shifts from the White House. Liam White reporting.
U.S. forces seized 2 oil tankers linked to Venezuela in bold ocean operations as President Trump outlined plans to sell the nation's crude.
The Navy captured 1 vessel in the North Atlantic and another in the Caribbean for breaking sanctions. Trump stated the U.S. would handle oil exports and ensure purchases of American goods with proceeds. Critics from Germany called the moves a values collapse, while polls showed split American views. Kyle Norris reporting.
And that's the latest news headlines with Alan Edwards.
2 guys drove to work. Neither guy wore a seatbelt. One guy got a ticket. One guy didn't. The same 2 guys drove home. One guy wore his seatbelt. One guy didn't. One guy made it home. The guy not wearing his seatbelt didn't. Don't risk it. Click it or ticket. Paid for by NHTSA.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that could happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone. The results of driving drunk are tragic. That's why law enforcement is out there looking for impaired drivers to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
As veterans, we're no strangers to helping others.
It's what we were taught, trained, and told to do.
It could be for anything. Helping a friend move.
Listening to a fellow veteran for hours, at any hour of the day.
Or just simply making time for people. A neighbor, a loved one, or even a stranger.
We're often the first to help others. There's no question about it.
But we do have one question for the veterans listening.
When was the last time you reached out for help?
Perhaps it's time to do for yourself what you would do for others.
If you or someone you know needs resources, whether it's for stress, finances, employment, or mental health, don't wait. Reach out.
Find more information at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough, but if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. Encourage them to see a doctor or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. The Alzheimer's Association provides care, support, and research to help you take control of the situation with your family and manage the disease together. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. Visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Live. This is the Jeff Santos Show on the Revolution Radio Network. Rebuilding America. Together. Investing, activism, and supporting the middle class. Now, here's Jeff.
It is hour 2 of the Jeff Santos Show, and welcome to it, folks. Coming to you live from the South Coast here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This is a big weekend in the NFL, and as the playoffs begin, yours truly rooting for his Patriots, and, you know, have been in the playoffs, it's been only 4 years, but they really didn't even, please. It was a blowout by the Bills. Going back to 2018, of course, that year they actually won the Super Bowl, but it's been very, very poor since then. Now, a lot of people across the country, you guys did win 6 and since 2002, Jeff. So don't complain. There are a lot of teams that are looking for their first Super Bowl that are up this year, and it's going to be fascinating to see what happens as the playoffs begin. And here to talk about it and a lot of other issues, too, is our good friend, fantastic NFL Network anchor, Patrick Claybon, joins us on the phone from Los Angeles, California, where it's much warmer than it is here, although it's not too bad today. It's about 40-something. Patrick, how are you, my man? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Jeff. Glad to be back with you, and glad to have Los Angeles weather back where it's supposed to be, 62. Sunny and partly
there
cloudy.
You go.
That's what we can expect.
Yeah, love that.
4 months before it goes to 72.
I love the consistency. 62, 72, 68. Very good. Over here, we may go to 20 degrees by Monday. So
Yikes.
This is it's a cold one. I'm fascinated by, so many things that could be coming out of this playoffs, there's some negative things. People are counting down on Tomlin, who is not only a fantastic coach, there's a lot of racism involved there. We'll get into that in a minute. But I think that we look at, let's say, the Buffalo-Jacksonville game to start there. Again, Jacksonville has never won a Super Bowl, neither has Buffalo. Buffalo maybe has the best quarterback in the league in Allen. They have an opportunity, but their opportunity is on the road. Unless some cockamamie thing ends up with the 2 wild cards, I guess, the Chargers and the Bills. The Bills are the 6th seed, the Chargers are the 7th seed. If they both were to win all the way through, then I guess you could have one more game at, Highmark Stadium in Buffalo, Orchard Park. But anyways, what do you make of this? Because, Jacksonville looks very good in the last few games of the year. They're young. Lawrence has been there, to the playoffs before. Didn't really shine, but, didn't do that badly either. And then, of course, it's a situation where, Buffalo's going to go to a warm weather climate. So it's just sort of the opposite of what the Chargers are doing coming here. give me your thoughts about this. I'm looking at that game as really kind of a direction of the AFC, because is Jacksonville for real? I mean, they've been playing fantastic football, went into Denver a few weeks ago and beat the Broncos with the number 1 seed. And Buffalo's, they've been there. They just haven't been able to get over to the top. They haven't been able to beat Patrick Mahomes, who's not in the playoffs, or, Joe Burrow from Cincinnati either, which they've lost both years, several years. So what do you make? Do you think the Jacksonville team is for real, or is Buffalo going to finally make it to the Super Bowl?
I'll tell you what, it's unfair that the thought right for the Buffalo Bills is it's now or never, because I have heard that particular thought process from a lot of people. It's Patrick Mahomes isn't in the playoffs, Joe Burrow is not in the playoffs, Lamar Jackson's not in the playoffs. So the obstacles are all out of the way, as if the consummate team sport, Jeff, is played by just one person at the quarterback position,
exactly.
albeit it's a valuable position. But these are teams, and it's a little bit odd, right? And I recognize, even though Jacksonville, Florida has been there for a while, it has its place in our nation's history. It's the largest municipality in terms of square footage for a single municipality in the United States. But there is a good bit of helmet scouting going on with the Jags, despite the fact that they won all these games down the stretch, including beating 2 playoff teams. One that's the number 1 seed in the entire AFC, in the Denver Broncos, on the road in Denver, 35-20, where it wasn't even close. The other playoff team they played down the stretch was the Los Angeles Chargers, who came to Everbank Stadium and got run out of it. It was the worst Chargers performance that we'd seen all season. And so if these Jags aren't for real, then I don't think anybody in the field is. And there's a lot to be said about the job that Liam Cohen has done in taking this group of guys that, to be honest, have been failed by coaching in the front office over the course of the recent history. You look at a guy like Josh Hines Allen, who's been there, I believe. He goes all the way back to Doug Marrone when he was first drafted in 2019. Just this long list of ultimate mistakes, culminating in the ultimate disaster that was the Urban Meyer tenure. To get to a point where they almost didn't get Liam Cohen. He considered staying in Tampa Bay, trying to become the successor there, and it took a couple trips, but eventually they were able to lure him in. And the shift in offensive personnel, the way that they deploy it, the way that they were willing, because a lot of teams weren't, to make that deal for Jacoby Myers at the trade deadline, and see the way that he's added to this offense, the way that they committed early to Travis Etienne, and have seen a resurgence in his career. This team could realistically, and I know they all could because the ball's not round and anything can happen. I think this team can go to the Super Bowl. And when you contrast that with, as you said, one of the best quarterbacks in Josh Allen, the task ahead for him is Herculean. Yeah,
it really is.
It would be really. It would be that John Wick impossible mission. And if he were able to do it, it would be 2016 LeBron, right? It would be one of these feats that we would look back in sports. And if he doesn't do it, I mean, the criticism, of course, because the way that sports media culture is right now, the negative voices are the primary voices, and they're the ones that everybody's going to hear, and nobody's good until they do it, allegedly. But yeah, the criticism is going to be there. It's not going to mean anything. I don't think we should pay any attention to it, but we are going to hear that particular critique, even though, because there's so much carryover between this franchise and the way it's currently positioned in Buffalo, including personnel, mostly in the front office. A lot of the players are gone. With the late stage of the Cam Newton Carolina Panthers, where you have this generationally gifted athlete that's doing so much in the run and the pass game. In terms of success rate, the most successful run in the history of the National Football League is when Josh Allen runs the ball. That is a certified stat.
Wow.
He does it to an extent that nobody has ever done before. But also that puts undue stress on his body. And are you still there? Hello?
Patrick, you still there?
Yeah, you still there, Jeff? Can you hear me now?
I can indeed. Something went a little goofy here. Okay, so we're talking with Patrick Claiborne. Let's reset here on the NFL Network here on the Jeff Santos Show. I think with some bad weather between Los Angeles and Boston. Okay, so there seems to be a scenario where I think Allen is given a lot of credit as an athlete, but as a quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, they put so much on him, and he doesn't have the receiver core that he had a couple of years ago. He doesn't have the defense that they had a couple of years ago, and just because they're not going to face Mahomes and Burrow, it doesn't mean you're not going to face a very hot Jacksonville team to start with. You may have to go through Drake May. You may have to go through Knicks. There's a lot of different scenarios here. So it is difficult. But I'm going to be fascinated. I think he will have a very good game. Whether or not that's good enough to beat the Jaguars, I'm not sure. Let's move on to another one in the NFC, which I'm fascinated with, and that's the Eagles and the 49ers. I've always liked the 49ers next to the Patriots, my home team. And Brock Purdy has been fantastic. He's very underrated. Do you think that this game could prove a point that, very difficult, win a Super Bowl, come back, win another one? We've had a couple of them. Obviously, Kansas City did it. The Patriots did it. But it's not, Miami did it in the 70s. Not easy to do. And maybe, Purdy goes in. He want revenge from a few years ago when he got hurt, and the Eagles won and would go on to the Super Bowl. But do you think that this isn't also a game that's going to be sneaky good and has, again, implications?
Oh, I think there's going to be very little sneaky about it, to be honest with you, Jeff. This is the 49ers offense was one of the hottest offenses coming down the stretch, and I recognize that game against the Seattle Seahawks, the tremendous defensive effort from the Seattle Seahawks, which was coming without Trent Williams, and we are on pace for Trent Williams to play for the 49ers in this one, and that's literally and figuratively a huge part of what they're able to do on offense. They were so hot, and they had to be. With the injuries to Bosa as well as to Fred Warner, the lack of pass rush after some free agency departures was really glaring. We've seen it all the way. You go back to that, I believe, Week 8 or Week 9 game against the Arizona Cardinals where Jacoby Brissett broke the single-game completions record because they just weren't able to get any pressure. And that has been something that has been a consistent problem. And we've seen it add up to kind of fall, places where offenses fall off, like in Dallas, for example, where their defense couldn't stop anybody. And just the undue pressure on Dak and the offense kind of wore them down as the season went on. We saw it during the middle of the season for the Cincinnati Bengals, whether it was Joe Flacco or Joe Burrow, with their defensive lapses there. But for Brock Purdy and the 49ers to continue to have that success, I mean, go back to that Bears game where was there 2 punts between both teams?
Yeah, exactly.
They also
that was amazing.
I'm not even sure.
I mean, it could have ended in the final play of the game.
Yeah, and so that's been the type of offensive excellence that the 49ers have needed to have this season. And it is for them to finish their last 2 games, perhaps, if they lose this game in Philadelphia coming up this weekend, against the Seattle Seahawks defense and the Philadelphia Eagles defense. There's going to be that tendency for folks to be like, oh, well, Brock Purdy and this Niners offense just collapsed at the end. But these are 2 really good defenses. And considering the way that the 49ers have had to excel despite the injuries they've had on offense, including to their quarterback, I think there's the popular idea is this is one of Kyle Shanahan's best coach seasons. And I think that's a little bit of a discredit to what he's done in the past to have these guys ready to execute in this particular opportunity where it's the culmination of over half a decade of Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco that they're able to accomplish this. And it will be a substantial task going up against an Eagles team that is rested. Because you mentioned the difficulty in repeating and winning a Super Bowl. These playoff runs are hard.
Oh yeah,
It extracts a
on the
significant
athlete.
toll. I mean, we saw Dre Greenlaw do his Achilles jogging onto the field in the Super Bowl. I mean, the accumulation of stress on these guys' bodies is just spectacular. And so for the Eagles to be back here and back in this position, I know they've been disappointing a lot of their fans, especially on offense. You know, it's not to discredit Kevin Petula. I think it's more credit to Kellen Moore and what he was able to accomplish with this group. But I think the rest will certainly help them. And I'm really looking forward to it because we were really deprived of a great opportunity when Brock did his UCL in that NFC Championship game. I know 49ers fans felt that they would have won. It's tough to play hypothetical football, but I just hope both teams are at the best strength they can be coming up this weekend.
I certainly do. Talking with Patrick Claiborne of the NFL Network here on the Jeff Santos Show. Phone number to join is 833-545-5333. Of course, the NFL playoffs begin. We've gone through Jacksonville and Buffalo. We've gone through the Niners and the Eagles. I want to, it's been fascinating to look at the turnaround of the Chicago Bears, much like the Patriots, who were, in doubt in the 4-win, 3-win category in the last couple of years. And Ben Johnson came in from Detroit, the offense coordinator under Campbell, of course, and has made an amazing turnaround of that offense. Burden, who I wanted to see the Patriots pick, they ended up getting Henderson, so they're not that concerned. But they were both great talents coming out of college. Do you think that the home field advantage in a rivalry game will make a difference here, or is it just of the experience of the Packers, who have been there? But this is also fascinating for me too.
Well, it's tough to deny, and I recognize it's a small sample size, Jeff, because it's just this season. But the home teams won both of these matchups, and there's obviously the elephant in the room would be that one of those wins came for Green Bay, in which the best pass rusher, I'd make the case. All credit to Myles Garrett in terms of sustained success. The best defensive player I've ever seen. But for Michael Parsons this season, in terms of what he was accomplishing, the way he had almost a 17% double team rate, and still top 4 in pressures despite missing these last few games. That game came with Michael Parsons playing on the edge for the Green Bay Packers. And so I think that makes it a little tougher for them. But the Bears also won in a game, and I recognize that Malik Willis played as well as you could hope a backup quarterback would ever possibly play.
Right.
But he's still not the starting quarterback. And having Jordan Love for that entire game changes things. That's the quarterback you come in, you plan to have and to execute the game plan for Matt LaFleur, who I think, despite some coaching rumors, is one of the best. If the Green Bay Packers would like to part ways with Matt LaFleur, I can think of 26 teams that would be more than happy to have him. But I think the relationship and the amount of time that LaFleur and Love have spent together gives them a little bit of an advantage in this one. But you just can't deny the way things were on a holiday evening in Chicago that night, the emotion in that place from the sideline to all the fans who I know have wanted this for a very long time. I mean, Caleb Williams was, I believe, 53 yards from breaking that 4,000-yard no Bears passer has ever happened curse this season. He's going to eventually get it in his career. But I really do think that this is going to be a great game. But if I have to pick it, and I do, I would lean Packers in this one.
Yeah, I do too. I think the experience matters here, and a lot of pressure. On a second year quarterback at home. To beat the Packers, what would be 3 or 4 weeks, twice in 3 or 4 weeks, whatever it was. So yeah, I agree with you there. Okay, let's go to another series, another game that I think is going to be fascinating, and that is the Chargers and the Patriots. you have an experienced quarterback who hasn't fared that well in Herbert versus the young gun and Drake May, who's been rumored to be the leading candidate to be the MVP of the league. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm not convinced that he is the MVP. You know, I mean, a lot of people are even saying McCaffrey as a running back, but you know, I mean, the performance of the Rams quarterback over the last couple of weeks hasn't been that great. So, you know, you can value that up. But we'll get to that before. Patriots, Chargers. Patriots, home field advantage. Talk about the weather. You know, teams that play in domes. You know, I think their record is something like 1-15 coming to the East Coast under temperatures under 40 degrees or the Midwest. I would give the Patriots an edge. You know, again, the experience is actually with the Chargers. And, of course, Harbaugh has won the national championship, been to the Super Bowl, lost it to his brother back in 2013. But I don't know. I guess I would lean to the Patriots here. Maybe it's prejudice or whatever. But your thoughts?
Yeah, Jeff, I think you can be absolved of any prejudice for the team that was in contention for the number one overall seed in the AFC with an MVP candidate quarterback in Drake May. That's the number 2 seed playing against the 7 seed at home on what's going to be a frigid night in Foxborough. That's not homerism. That's just sheer evaluation of the circumstances at play. But what the Chargers have been able to do, despite losing both of their tackles for the entire season in Rashawn Slater and Bill Alt, it has been an incredible effort by Justin Herbert, who's played almost this entire stretch run with broken bones in his non-throwing hand. He's always wielding that thing out there like a spear when he's trying to stiff arm people, and I wish he would stop that. But you know, 'cause I can't imagine the type of pain that he is. He had surgery on it, and he came back to play in the same week. Right, and it's there's a lot that he's going to have to contend with, and I know the popular critique about this Patriots defense is, you know, the offenses that they've had to play, but you can only play who's on your schedule, and they've been able to execute exceedingly well. And I have a feeling, you know, because there's some familiarity in these coaching staffs. It was an interesting question to Mike Vrabel this week regarding the type of challenges that Greg Broman has been able to present to him in the postseason. And I was thinking, well, a lot of those challenges were just having Lamar Jackson. And the challenge this time is having Justin Herbert. And so it's not this necessarily exceedingly complicated scheme. That there's so much site adjustments that will sometimes send the receivers careening into the same space, and sometimes it springs them open. But Justin Herbert has to read, diagnose, and analyze all that, all while pressure's coming. And I think, you know, the fact that Milton Williams is going to be back for New England, providing a little bit more of that, because the Chargers haven't just had problems on the outside; they've had problems on the inside of the offensive line, and it's hard. It's hard not to lean heavily towards the home team. You know, the seeding and everything, I think, is going to play out the way that it looks, like kind of like an overmatched 7 seed, albeit with a good quarterback, very similar to the 6-3 game that's going to be in Jacksonville this week, where you've got a really good quarterback that's overmatched and is going to have to show why they are ranked where they are in order to win.
Yeah. I just got 30 seconds. Steelers, Tomlin versus the Texans. Quick thought there before we roll. Unfortunately, we didn't get into all the games as much as we want to. Your thoughts there? I hope Tomlin wins. I just want to have him keep his job.
Yeah, I wish we had more time, Jeff, and Aaron Rodgers is going to wish the same thing. It's an incredible pass rush. They got into the playoffs playing against a team that could not rush the passer, has not been able to all season. And here comes Neil Hunter and Will Anderson. I wish Aaron Rodgers the best in his future endeavors.
I agree with you there, and I think you're right. And I hope they hold on to Tomlin regardless if it's an L or a W. Thank you, Patrick. It is always great having with you. Spend and enjoy your NFL weekend, and enjoy the weather too. Thanks, my friend. We'll be right back after this timeout.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that could happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone. The results of driving drunk are tragic. That's why law enforcement is out there looking for impaired drivers to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
This radio commercial was made to convince you to stop speeding. We can't use siren sound effects on the radio, so we'll use other equally jarring sound effects to get your attention. Like telling you that whether you drive a little over the speed limit or a lot, you can crash just the same. You could hurt yourself or worse, others.
I'm at the scene of the collision.
And the damage you cause will be beyond repair. See? We didn't have to use crash or siren sounds after all. Speeding catches up with you. Brought to you by NHTSA.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough, but if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. Encourage them to see a doctor or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. The Alzheimer's Association provides care, support, and research to help you take control of the situation with your family and manage the disease together. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. Visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
As veterans, we're no strangers to helping others.
It's what we were taught, trained, and told to do.
It could be for anything. Helping a friend move.
Listening to a fellow veteran for hours, at any hour of the day.
Or just simply making time for people. A neighbor, a loved one, or even a stranger.
We're often the first to help others. There's no question about it.
But we do have one question for the veterans listening.
When was the last time you reached out for help?
Perhaps it's time to do for yourself what you would do for others.
If you or someone you know needs resources, whether it's for stress, finances, employment, or mental health, don't wait. Reach out.
Find more information at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
Supporting the middle class. This is the Jeff Santos Show.
Okay. 33 minutes past the hour. It is the Jeff Santos Show that you are tuned into. Coming to you live from the South Coast here in the South Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I played the RFK senior, distinguished from his son, speech, and I haven't used it in a number of years. We played it several years ago. In fact, a good friend of mine who's since passed away, Jim King, who was with Bobby Kennedy on that day in Indiana. That was a impromptu ad-lib speech. It's a brilliant speech. And we'll play it again when we get Herb. We're trying to get out of a interview. But it's leaders like that who, of course, was shot down in Los Angeles in the kitchen of the Ambassador Hotel, I believe. There are people who understand the moment and meet the moment. And even though there are some that shy away from harsh words when they are needed, Saw yesterday the mayor of Minnesota, Fry, show his emotion. And yeah, he used the F-bomb. And yeah, he spelled out the BS. I think it's something Democrats should do more of. You know, we may have to bleep it out for FCC rules violations on radio. But a lot of people, you know, they've heard the word. Even 7-year-olds have heard the word. So, not saying that, you know, we think that every public official should say that all the time. But when you see the moment and hear the moment and feel the moment, then use it. Showing your emotions is a good thing. Long as you do it in a peaceful and nonviolent way. All right. Our next guest comes to us from New York City, from the great section of New York called Harlem, USA. It is always great on Thursdays to talk to our great friend. He is, of course, the author of many great books on Malcolm X, Black Detroit, and, of course, a great columnist for the Amsterdam News. Herb Boyd, Happy New Year, Herb, and happy Thursday, my friend. How are you?
Oh, thank you very much. You know, I wish I could be a lot more joyful.
Yes, not a day to be joyful.
Like many in the country. And matter of fact, as you called, I was working on a piece for Dr. King's up and coming 97th birthday celebration or commemoration. And you know, Jeff, I found we often talk about past as prologue.
Oh yeah.
Well, I thought what came to mind with the shooting death of Renee Nicole Good on January the 7th out in Minneapolis was Viola Liuzzo, who on March the 25th, 1965, was gunned down by Klansmen on the highway from Selma to Montgomery. She had left Detroit to go down and participate in that great march, and she was chauffeuring people from one part of the state to the other when the Klansmen followed her car and then gunned her down on the highway. I thought very much of Renee Nicole Good in the situation. Of course, you know, comparing ICE agents with the KKK may not be a good one, but just to think about the tragedy, how horrific the deaths were. They both were in their 30s, one 37 with Renee and 39 with Viola. To say nothing of leaving behind 5 children, as Miss Viola did, as well as 3 that Renee left. So all of that brought to mind Dr. King because, of course, Liuzzo, you don't compare her from a martyrdom standpoint. I mean, Dr. King was the preeminent martyr we lost during the civil rights movement, during that struggle. But we can't dismiss how essential she was and her memory and everything. And so I was thinking of her, thinking of Renee, as I thought about Dr. King and how he would feel about what's going on today, and very much the illegalities of the Trump administration are very similar to the kind of stuff he had to encounter during his short tenure with us. He was gone before he was 40 years of age. But he put in a remarkable career, and so as we get ready to commemorate his birthday, let us also offer our condolences to Renee Nicole Good and her family. It's amazing.
It is. You know, interestingly enough, on April 4, 1968, of course, Martin Luther King was taken from us by a bullet. I was playing, and I hoping that Jalen can give us some of the speech on April 4, 1968 in Indiana by senior Robert F. Kennedy, then the senator from New York, Of course, 2 months later, he would be gunned down in Los Angeles. And I thought of this this morning watching the press conference of the Homeland Security person who hopefully one day will join Mr. Trump in an orange jumpsuit behind bars. But I want you to hear a little bit. And Jalen, let me know when you have some of that speech. We'll try to, I want to get your reaction because I think it makes so much sense to where we are today. And so, Jalen, let me know if you have the last 2 minutes, if that is possible. If not, we'll play the beginning of it. But to me, you do. All right. This is Indiana. This is an impromptu speech. Robert F. Kennedy was traveling, campaigning for president in the Indiana primary. He is heard off mic asking the people, I believe in Indianapolis, did they know of the assassination of Martin Luther King? And then he goes on to have this speech. And just toward the end, I think makes most sense from where we are today, Herb. And I think that we need to reflect on. This is Robert F. Kennedy addressing the crowd of supporters. And it was a large African-American population in the crowd. And this is what he had to say about the times in 1968. Again, this is the day that Martin Luther King was killed. Let's play that, Jalen.
To get beyond or go beyond these rather difficult times. My favorite poem, my favorite poet was Aeschylus. And he once wrote, even in our sleep, pain which cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart, until in our own despair, against our will, comes wisdom through the awful grace of God. What we need in the United States is not division. What we need in the United States is not hatred. What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another, feeling of justice toward those who still suffer within our country, whether they be white or whether they be black. We can do well in this country. We will have difficult times. We've had difficult times in the past, but we will have difficult times in the future. It is not the end of violence. It is not the end of lawlessness, and it's not the end of disorder. But the vast majority of white people and the vast majority of black people in this country want to live together, want to improve the quality of our life, and want justice for all human beings that abide in our land. With
Robert F. Kennedy, April 4, 1968, Herb. Those words echo today. Vast majority of those who are white are good people. Vast majority of those who are black are good people. Vast majority of those who are Latino, you can add in, are good people, Asian, et cetera, et cetera. But we have a leader in this country who is not a good person. This is a person who does exactly what Kennedy, cries out against, about hate and division. And this is what we need to get through. In a legal and non-violent way, we need to reduce his influence, eventually impeach him, and get him removed from the presidency, because what we saw the other day is reflective of what our country is today, Herb. And that can't stand for very long because we won't have much of a democracy left if it does. Your thoughts, my friend?
You know, this morning I cut on the TV, and one of the programs that I look at early in the morning is the historical stuff. You know, I like to look back and get my day started with some semblance of the past. And I cut on my Prime. I checked out Prime this morning, and the thing that was up was 1968.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the one that I guess is that one of the Ken Burns' things. I'm not sure if it was Ken Burns or not, but anyway, it was remarkable to see that 1968. My goodness, you know, and it takes me back to exactly my own activist period at Wayne State University in the city of Detroit, and recalling all of the incidents. I mean, it was just so much. I mean, 1968 was such a critical year. So much
Awful
was
year.
happening.
Yes.
I mean, the war in Vietnam in particular.
Yeah.
And I think the producer of this documentary was Tom Hanks, and he also was a commentator
Might have been CNN,
in the
actually.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he was talking about, you know, some of his memories, and of course what he's done over the years as a remarkable film maker, star, featured in so many interesting films. And so he was putting it all into context in terms of what 1968 was all about. And then to see the film footage, as you just heard of Robert F. Kennedy, that, because he had just, I mean, Eugene McCarthy, I mean, he had just won. California? He had just won California.
Yeah,
So he
in
was
June
on a
of that
roll.
year. Yeah.
Exactly.
Probably would have been
So
the
he
nominee.
was on a roll. Hmm. And then, of course, Johnson had already stepped out.
Right.
So it was a critical year. And then all the stuff that's going to succeed after there, for him to make the announcement, and the people around him as he made the announcement was just absolutely stunned. I mean, it's just a man, you know, Dr. Martin Luther King has been killed in Memphis, and it was just such a pause fell over that whole crowd as he made the announcement. He found it very hard to make that announcement.
Yeah,
But
you could hear his voice chattering.
Duty-bound. Exactly, he was duty-bound to put it out, and put some words to it, and say something about it. And as you suggest, Jeff, not, you know, hey, what'd you count? A couple of months later, he's gone.
Yeah.
68,
Yeah.
1968.
Almost to the day, and June 4th, and I don't know if he died on the 5th, but yeah, it was a horrible time. I was a very young man at the time, you know, and but you know, looking back at that year, you were young too, but I was a toddler. But I think the thing is that to bring a little bit of levity to this horrific situation, which of course many people now reflect on what is happening in Minneapolis, and hopefully will never happen again, but continues the division and the hate, you know, of Trump and his officials, including Secretary Noem and others that are driving up this idea that people who are domestic terrorists, this is a mom of three in a minivan. It's not exactly a weapon of, you know, of nuclear arms, or it's not a machine gun. It's a minivan that carries three little kids in it that now no longer have a mom. You know, but they will lie because that's what they do. And they're led by a man who doesn't care, has lied, has had a coup d'etat, you know, has just invaded Venezuela to take the oil. That's all he cares about. And, you know, so this is where we are. And those words that Kennedy, RFK Sr., talked about, I think are very prophetic today. and we need to think about that. We need to stop the hate, stop the division, but I think you got to stop the president first before you can do all that, and we got to do it in a legal way. I want to go to the phones and our good friend John in Minnesota, who lives there, not many miles away from
great.
the episode, in a second here, but I just quickly, I believe that what we heard yesterday, and we don't have that sound, although I will try to get it a little bit later. The mayor of the great city of Minneapolis, Mayor Fry, I think showed the anger, the frustration, and, by saying, get out of our effing city, and don't lie to us with this narrative. It's BS.
BS.
To me, I want to see more Democrats do that. What we just heard from RFK Sr., you can communicate in that way, and particularly in that moment, but you can also communicate with some passion, whether that's an F-bomb or whatever. And we can't say it because we're on FCC radio. But the point is that I want to hear Democrats stand up for what they believe in. And if they don't believe in it, then get out of the way. In that same press conference, one of the Fox reporters or someone, that basically tied to that same propaganda, started talking about the city councilors and the people who were, the bad people. They were trying to basically say the truth. And the truth was that a federal officer killed somebody in the face for basically, as your good friend and mine would say, and I'll adjust it, Kenneth Meeks, not driving while black, in this case, driving with a minivan. And that's what had her killed. Your thoughts, we'll go to the calls.
Yes. Well, one of the things about it, I think the Governor Walz did as much as he could to bring some sense of objectivity. I mean, I didn't expect anything. Vice President Vance this afternoon, it was just horrendous hearing him talk about it, mouthing no more than the attitude and expressions that his boss would have. I mean, the whole domestic terrorism charge, in other words, is that the whole blame game that comes so terribly from the Trump quarters. They got the fingers got to be pointed elsewhere. It takes. He was talking about a morality thing today. I mean, that he could even fix his mouth to say that word is just absolutely incomprehensible. I mean, he doesn't know anything about morality.
No, none of them do. None of them do.
Yes, indeed.
It's just a sad state of affairs. What we have, we could have had, and not only with Bobby Kennedy, but with what would have been Harris, and before that, a healthier Joe Biden, and now we have the Gestapo, and on our way to the fourth right if things don't change soon. All right, let's go to John in Minneapolis, who was, of course, with us yesterday. John, you're next with Herb Boyd here on the Jeff Santos Show. We hope your city, can overcome this and overcome it soon. Thank you for calling. Go right ahead, John.
I wanted to say that, unfortunately, I think that woman was caught in ice. I was out that morning, and I could barely get from my car to a coffee shop for fear of slipping and falling. I just thought, I want to make it into this coffee shop. And it was just hideous. It's hideous like Buffalo, New York, or places like that, or Detroit, where, it melts and then it freezes. And I think that she lived in that neighborhood. I don't even know if she was part of the demonstration, but we're never going to find out any detail because they're just going to try to squash it. And I hope that they have a private investigation or some kind of investigation. I hope they just go
the
ahead
state
and
can
do
do
it.
something, obviously.
Who are they to tell me and the citizens of Minnesota that we can't have justice for this woman? And you know, it's interesting. She was shot in the face. I don't know if you guys had seen pictures of her. She was an absolutely stunning woman.
All right, we are back live here in the South Coast. We had some technical issues getting a hold of our next guest. Of course, it's a fantastic Greg Palast, who is one of the best investigative journalists in the world, particularly on voter suppression here in the United States, but also on the issue of Venezuela, where he has done amazing amount of work. And he joins us. He's in Portugal today. And again, we had some problems connecting, but he's on audio with us. Greg, great to have you, my friend. And I'm going to hold you over on the news break to the next segment for a few minutes as well. So thank you. So this obviously has been an incredible, insane week with the president on Saturday morning, allowing troops to kill 100 Venezuelans, I guess, to go after Maduro. Of course, after he released the president of Honduras, who committed more atrocities in terms of killing more Americans with his drugs. Yet he gets released, but Maduro's now, in a Brooklyn jail. For what I understand why he's there. He's not a great guy, but the fact is that this is outrageous. But this is where we are in this country today. Never mind what happened, yesterday in Minneapolis. Your view on this, because you've had a lot of history. We met back in 2006, 20 years ago now. It seems like time goes by pretty quickly.
Yeah.
We were talking about this issue with Citizens Energy in Massachusetts and Joe Kennedy, the former congressman and the brother of the lunatic Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It's the world turns. What's your perspective here? Because you bring an interesting one that I don't think a lot of our listeners have heard.
Yeah. Please understand, this is Greg Palast, and I was the reporter for BBC Television and The Guardian who covered Venezuela. I spent a lot of time with Hugo Chavez, who was the late president of Venezuela, the president who's been seized by Trump, Nicolas Maduro. He came he spent some time with me in New York. And I know the acting president very well, Delcy Rodriguez. I also know the opposition pretty well. So I know the story pretty well, spending literally years in Venezuela. So here's what's happening. Maduro, and by the way, he was not elected. He lost his election. He refused to leave office. So he did a Trump. I thought Trump might admire him for that, but no. And he's been, Trump's excuse for grabbing another nation's president is that he was running drugs into the U.S. Now, if you look at the United Nations annual World Drug Trafficking Report, this is the expert report on drug trafficking. Drugs do not come out of Venezuela because there's embargoes, because there's military all over the Venezuelan coast. You'd have to be out of your damn mind if you're dealing drugs to move it through Venezuela. The UN report also says Venezuela does not produce any drugs. It doesn't produce cocaine. It doesn't produce fentanyl, which comes, by the way, from Mexico via China. So that's all BS, right. What he's being charged with, and narco-terrorism. That's nonsense. Look, we know what it's all about because Trump has said it about 92 times. It's the oil. Venezuela has the largest reserves on the planet, 4 times more than Saudi Arabia. Now, while I knew Maduro very well, he stole his election. He's a thug. He is not capable of being president of Venezuela. That doesn't mean another country should come in and kidnapping him and charge
Exactly.
him crazy charges.
There are plenty of bad guys,
But
Mr. Putin being the top of the list.
here's
He
the
ain't
real
going to
issue is, so let's go back to the oil. So Trump is shouting that he wants Venezuela's oil. Well, guess what? Until Trump came in, we had Venezuela's oil. And, this guy. Okay, Venezuela under Hugo Chavez.
One second. I just want to warn our affiliates. We're going through the news break because of this situation, and we'll go to Greg till about 10 minutes past the hour, and then we'll bring in our next guest. So continue, Greg. I just wanted to alert our affiliates, KCAA, WGHT, about this situation. So we're going right through the news. Go right ahead.
Yeah. So what's happened here? It's all about the oil, and Trump isn't even covering it up. He says we want that oil. Well, guess what, Donald? You had the oil until you came into office. Venezuela was selling us 1 million barrels of oil a day, and Trump embargoed the nation, stopping them from selling us their oil. He stopped us from getting their oil. And now he's running a victory lap. Oh, I'm going to get oil from Venezuela. Well, they were selling it to us until you embargoed them. And here's the problem. Because he shut off Venezuela, not only did he embargo us buying the oil from Venezuela, he also stopped them from getting any parts, food, medicine, anything. It's all been embargoed. He's starving this nation to death. That's an act of war. And here's the problem. Because he stopped the Venezuelan oil industry from getting just basic spare parts and operations, their whole system is collapsing. So Venezuela has something called it has super heavy oil. Right. And when it stops flowing, the pipes jam up, they become tar. They congeal into tar. The machinery congeals into tar. So now he wants them to give us oil. And by the way, they're happy to do so. They have no problem with that. America's their number one customer. They want their customer back. But he's destroyed their infrastructure. So now he's saying, we're going to rebuild Venezuela's oil industry. Well, there's $100 billion right there. He's got to convince U.S. oil companies.
And it's going to take 10 years to do it, too.
Yeah, and so he's got to convince the oil industry to rebuild the oil infrastructure that he destroyed. You have to understand, he destroyed Chevron's infrastructure. He destroyed Exxon's infrastructure. He destroyed French Total's infrastructure. Trump did this, and now he's saying, look at the oil I got you. It's like an arsonist who wants credit for calling the fire department. We were getting their oil. Now, here's the thing. I know very well Delcio Rodriguez, who is the acting president. In fact, if you go to gregpalace.com, you'll read a story about how, almost 20 some years ago, she came to my apartment in London when I was working for BBC and The Guardian, and knocked on my door at 2 a.m. saying, "Look, President Hugo Chavez of Venezuela has asked me to find you because he's about to be kidnapped. There's going to be a coup d'etat, and so please come to Venezuela." And my producer at BBC didn't believe it. So, well, why should we send you BBC? Because this woman says that you're going to have there's going to be a coup d'etat. And sure enough, on April 2 of 2002, Chavez, the president of Venezuela, just like they did this time, was kidnapped. But in that case, George W. Bush, who was president, let the Venezuelans, basically hired Venezuelans to do the kidnapping. And the whole thing blew apart because I can tell you right now, I was down in Venezuela for all the elections, all these past elections, for 20 years. Chavez was wildly, wildly popular. He won election and then re-election by a massive amount. It's totally legit. Jimmy Carter, who did not like Chavez, Jimmy Carter said it's one of the most honest elections in the hemisphere, better than in the U.S.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Chavez was elected, but they kidnapped him.
Yeah, he was doing so many, Carter, overseeing elections in the Middle East and the Far East and all around the world. So, yes, exactly. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Carter just said Venezuela is the most honest elections on the planet, better than in Georgia, and I can tell you that. And Chavez is wildly popular. Why?
Firsthand.
Because he gave the people, as one of his opposition journalists told me, he gives people bricks and bread. In other words, built housing by bricks. She meant people get guaranteed housing, they get guaranteed food, and unlike in the U.S., they get guaranteed medical care. How dare he? And he used the oil money to pay for these basic human services. But then what happened was, the U.S., and he was more than happy. Just so you know, I spent a lot of time with President Chavez. He said for all his rhetoric, he worked very well with U.S. oil companies. He really liked George Bush Sr. Jr. He, was a nutcase that he would not tolerate.
I remember the whole thing on the UN, the
so what's
sulfur and all
happened
that,
is
right?
now, so now they came up with this cockamamie excuse that somehow Maduro is a drug dealer, even though, as you noted, the old president of Honduras, who was convicted in a federal U.S. court of running $400 million worth of cocaine into the U.S. and drugs, he was pardoned. But like I said, the UN has said that Maduro did not run drugs. Now, that doesn't mean he was a brilliant or good president. He wasn't. But now his vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, who I know, who is a brilliant lawyer, and her brother Jorge Rodriguez, who is the Speaker of the Congress, who went to the Sorbonne, a very brilliant guy. But they're practical people. They don't hate the U.S. The U.S. is their number one customer. When Trump says, I'm getting their agreement to sell us oil, they always wanted to sell us oil. You're the one that embargoed them and prevented them from selling us oil. If Trump had simply said, okay, Venezuela, sell us oil. Do you know that for years, even under George W. Bush, we got 1 million barrels of oil a day from Venezuela, and we did that by contract, not by gunboat. They want to sell us their oil. They're not withholding it from us. This is the craziest damn thing I've ever heard. And he's going to seize their oil. What the hell does that mean? That he's going to, take over control of their oil industry. The U.S. has always had control of the Venezuelan oil industry. This is silly. It was Trump who stopped Venezuela from selling its oil. It was Trump who stopped them from maintaining their oil fields and oil industry. It is completely insane. But now one good thing that's happened is that the CIA, OPEC, and the oil companies have gone to Trump and said, right now the acting president is Delcy Rodriguez, who I've known for years, brilliant lawyer. And they said, keep her there because she will work with us. She's always worked with the U.S. oil industry. She was, by the way, the energy secretary in Venezuela. Yeah. She knows the industry. She gets along very well with U.S. oil companies. They're her best customers. She doesn't jack
I want to interrupt you
customers.
because we got a few minutes left, Greg. But here is something that I think I've been saying all week long since we've been back, that this is all about distraction to the American people. One, Epstein. Two, the 35% approval rating, the high gas prices, the high cost of coffee. Been holding up this Dunkin' Donuts coffee bag for the last couple of months. It went from $7.99 in October here in Massachusetts, where Dunkin' started, of course, to $14, $13.99 to be exact, in the last 2 months. And, the economy is going in the hell in a handbasket. So I think that's what this was about. Because it's a country that
no kidding.
Yes, that's what I think this is all about.
Okay, there's a couple timing issues. Number one, he invades the day before he's supposed to release the Epstein files. Oh, well, there you go. And the second thing is that little Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, his big funder, and the guy who wants to become president is a guy named Paul Singer, who I've been investigating for literally 25 years. He is known as the Vulture, and he's trying to buy right now in a Maryland courtroom. He's trying to buy the assets of the Venezuelan oil company. He's trying to take over Venezuela's oil company. And this happened just as he's going to court to seize the Venezuelan oil company. So you put it together. Marco Rubio's big billionaire funder wants Venezuela's oil company. That's what it's about. That's the thing that isn't out there. That's the story. So between Epstein and getting Rubio's money man billions of dollars by stealing Venezuela's oil, that doesn't help you or me. If we want lower oil prices, Trump should have ended the embargo in Trump 1. But that's what we ended up with.
Unreal.
It's
and of course,
all
the whole
about the
hatred
oil.
of Rubio came from Cuba and Fidel and all that stuff. And, I
know he's a
this
nutcase.
is good.
But all I can tell you is let's pray. Is like the oil companies, the CIA, everyone wants Delcy Rodriguez, this wonderful woman, to remain in. She was elected to remain in office, and it's the only way we're going to get oil and peace. Otherwise, it's going to be Iraq 2.0. There's going to be an insurgency. There's going to be civil war. It would be a tragedy for the people of Venezuela and a tragedy for Americans, and especially if he sends troops there, they're going to die. He has boots on the ground. No, it's going to be blood. It's going to be blood on the ground.
Greg Palast, investigative journalist. You heard it, folks. BBC journalist, Guardian journalist. He knows this stuff. He knows Ms. Rodriguez. We're going to continue this conversation over the coming weeks with Greg. Greg, thank you, my friend. I know you're overseas. Appreciate your time. It's very late in Portugal right now. Thank you for spending time with us today. Appreciate it, my friend. We'll talk to you very soon.
I'm thrilled
to
bring the story to your listeners. Thank you so much, Jeff. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Greg. Appreciate it very much. All right, we're going to make a transition here to the world of sports, which sometimes interplays. There are sports owners that want to own oil companies, I guess. So there's that one link, but there's many others too. It's crazy, but we have a crazy president. So that's where we are, folks. And it's affecting every walk of life, including the world of sports. And our next guest is at his own viewpoints on the incumbent president as well. Kevin Paul DuPont, the great hockey writer, the great sports columnist for the Boston Globe, a great friend of the program and of yours truly, joins us. Kevin, welcome back to the frozen East Coast, although not too bad today. I know you were in Vancouver and the beautiful northwestern city that I've had a chance to visit and enjoy, and next to Seattle. I love that whole part of the great Northwest. In fact, our next guest is from Seattle, so it's kind of a connection there. Thank you, my friend. We got lots to talk about, but I want to get your take here on the up and down season of the Boston Bruins. And frankly, you don't know whether this team is a playoff team with the chance to maybe win an upset in the first round, or whether or not they're, going to finish last place, maybe ahead of Columbus, but that's about it. What are we looking at?
Well, first of all, Jeff, good to be with you. My first chance for the new year, so happy New Year. And
yes, happy New Year to you, sir.
Thank you. So the Bruins, Boston Bruins, I think they have the talent to be a playoff team, a wild card, which is what I thought going in. I think the odds now are stacked against them just by basic math, and not to bore your listeners with my math lesson, but they've by my eye. It's going to take 95 points to get in the playoffs, and that's a typical number each year. You got to get 95 points to get in the tournament, and right now, for them to do that, they've got to play over 600 the rest of the way. So I think last night was 44, so they got 38 games left. They've got to pick up 62% of those points, 63, somewhere around 63% of those points. They haven't done that all year. They haven't been a 630 team all year. So I think right now they're on the outside looking in. Anything can happen, but I think for them to play 6:30 hockey or better over a sustained period of take out the Olympic break, but for their final 38 games or so, I think it's really going to be a struggle. And some of this, much of it, is self-inflicted. They've played undisciplined hockey. They finally got sort of back on the beam last night against Calgary. They didn't have this endless procession to the penalty box, and that's really hurt them all year long.
Yeah, massive penalties.
One of the stats that really sticks out here for me is the season isn't 16 weeks long, but they've had 16 games now where they go into the third period trailing, and they're 0 for 16, which to me is a remarkable number. Usually
incredibly
not
remarkable,
usually, but often when they're behind, often I'm going to just take a guess here that of those 16 games they've been behind, probably 8 or 9 of them but been by 1 goal. So to not have enough pushback in your lineup, not to be able to at least come out of it with a point. And of course, if they'd grabbed even 5 points out of those 16 games, we'd be having a much different discussion. But to me, that's a remarkable number at this point in the season. That's basically that's a game a week or better where they're down by a goal or better after 40 minutes and done nothing. So, and I think that really does speak to their personnel. They don't have, the obvious name here is, they don't have Marchand to sense the moment, seize the moment.
Yeah, I want to get that because you had a great comment on that in your fantastic notes, which I've been reading for, 25 years or so that you've been doing it, maybe even more. And Sonny, in the Boston Globe section, it's if you're a sports fan or just a hockey fan, you want to read the Kevin Paul DuPont notes. And you mentioned about the loss of Marchand. I agree. I was not for that trade, and Sweeney made some good ones, and he's picked up some good free agents along the way, and most notably Steve's. Yes. But that was a disaster because you lose the culture. I mean, the Red Sox are debating this week whether or not to pay Bregman the money because it's 5 years and all that. But he's a team leader. You don't lose those guys. Now, Breslow's a nerd and analytics guy, and those guys don't understand. It doesn't compute. It doesn't compute to the computer. It doesn't pull it out, right? But this is something that you would have thought that Sweeney, who played the sport, and Neely, who's his boss counterpart, whatever, also played the sport, that actually makes a difference. But yet they got a number 1 pick. I don't know what it's going to be because could Florida come back when Barkov gets healthy and Kachuk gets healthy and they turn it on again? I don't know, but I think it's a 27 pick anyways. But the point is this: is that I think that the only way the Bruins are going to make the playoffs, and even if they do, it's a 7th or 8th kind of seed kind of thing, in my opinion, is the scenario that they have to go and make a trade. You've been talking a lot about the fact that they need a center. Now, this idea that you can't trade, I've never agreed with this premise in the NHL and other sports too, that you can't trade for a rental because you're a team that's not there at the Final Four stage or whatever. I look at it, if the rental is 30 years old or 31 years old or 32 years old, and you can sign him for 3 years after the fact, and the Bruins will have money going forward. So, they can trade their backup goalie, number 1. That's $3 million right there. But, you can do this if indeed the right guy. Now, I think Huberdeau for Calgary was in last night. He was about 32 years of age. If they can make a deal, and if they have to get rid of a couple of the number 1 picks that they have, then go ahead and do it. Because to me, they're not that far. When you have a core of McAvoy, Zadorov, and Lindholm on defense, you get an all-star goalie, although had his hiccups recently in Swayman. His ego is another issue. But their offense outside of Pastrnak and Geekie, who's slumping, they don't have much up there. So if they can get the center, which you've been calling for, and I think I and many others too, go and get it. I mean, I don't know, is Scheifele with the Cheveldae relationship with Sweeney, could he be available at 32? Because Winnipeg is having a horrendous season after winning the President's Trophy last year. I guess that whole jinx thing goes on. What about that idea? Because, but the team is older anyways. It's not like they got a bunch of 22-year-old kids Lindholm was close to 30. Zadorov is up there. Pasternak is 29 or whatever. They're core players, and they're paying big money. These guys are all, just under 30 or at 30. So why not pay one more guy and maybe get into the playoffs? And who knows? Your thoughts?
Well, I like the idea of getting into the playoffs. And as I'm listening to you, I don't think Yogi Berra actually said it, but I'll say it. You get old fast in this game.
You do.
And yeah,
you play left field after those 25s.
Yeah, those 22 to 25s in a blink, they are in that 28, 30, 31. And I don't look at this, and I think you're saying the same thing. I don't look at the Bruins roster and think they're a player away from being a real contender, right?
Right.
Now that said, they've softened a little at the gate this year. The enthusiasm is less than it was. So yeah, I think they're ripe to make a trade. And I think if the right guy is, I don't know if it's Huberdeau, but they do need a number one center. He's been that, and that's the kind of player they've got to get. And easier said than done. That's just it. When we took for granted so long here that they had Bergeron and Krejci in the middle, and they're two really elite centers. But if you don't have that guy or a guy and a half who are really going to be a rainmaker in the offense, it's very difficult. So they don't have the number one center. They don't have that cultural piece that Marchand was unique. And let's face it, they made a dollar decision there. He was going to get overpaid in the market. He did get overpaid, but on the same hand, he goes to Florida, and if Florida wins another, say, 2 cups in his tenure there, then it's not an overpayment.
And the other thing too is
Detroit would have been positioned.
Yeah, the other thing I want to talk, we're talking about Kevin Paul DuPont, a great hockey writer, great sports columnist for the Boston Globe, great journalist, period, here on the Jeff Santos Show. We may get a Trump comment before it's over, too. But let me just say this. I was going to get you at least one. So here is, in my view, the it'll be gentle. The thing that I feel is important here is that you make it, and it's self-serving for Sweeney. Look, I mean, he got the extension. I understand that. But are you going to have 2 do not qualify for the playoffs in a row? And, he maybe could have put money into Ehlers, and he put it for Jeannot and others. So, I mean, to me, I think he almost has to do this. Because Neely's going to look around and say, well, what are we doing here? I mean, we're spending a lot of money. You spent a lot of money 2 years ago with Lindholm and Zadorov, and now we're not going to spend money. What's going on here? So to me, I think it almost makes sense. Now, the Scheifele thing, maybe it's a pipe dream, but he does have a relationship with Cheveldae, right, Sweeney? Aren't they pretty close?
I don't know that they're close, but they're on the same team, if you will, in terms of the whole Canadian thing and the rest of it.
Right.
No,
I heard they were close.
They could be, and I just don't know that. But I agree with the logic in your statement. It's just we can have these discussions all night long, and I'm up for them. Right. But in the end, it's just theory, and Sweeney has gone out and made some really good deals at the deadline. They all didn't pay off, obviously. I thought the Nash deal, Rick Nash at the time, was the player to get.
Yeah, and they got him.
He comes in here, he gets and they went out and got him, and they moved Bolesky, which was an error, a UFA signing error. Came in, gets concussed. It all fell apart there. They went out and as you remember, in their record-setting year of 3 years ago, they went out and got Bertuzzi. They went out and got Hathaway and juiced
Orlov.
up the lineup. They looked poised for a real cupper. Those were good decisions. Those were good trades.
They were.
And we know what happened. We know what happened. And some of that is
Game 7, Ullmark,
nature.
Oh my God.
Yeah, some of it is just the nature of the sport, that it's there's no professional sport like it in terms of the capriciousness of it or the whimsy or whatever. But they were a loaded team. They ended up going against Florida and they got knocked out. I didn't see it coming. I don't think anybody saw it coming. But so that's just it. So, but I guess the point I'm building to here is I don't see a one or two trades here where they leapfrog up from where they are, which I say is a team that's going to have to get 95 points and play close to 630 the rest of the way. I just don't see that it's there for them to do it. So I think
you may
if
be
they're
right.
making trades, they're thinking more about structural trades in the sense of what does it do for this team 2 to 3 years out? And those really aren't the 28, 30-year-old guys. I think if they could make deals that were bringing in players who could play in the top 4 on D, play in the top 6 on 4, 6 forwards, and also be of age 24, 25. And I'll give you a perfect example because he's an exciting player right now. Fraser Minton.
Yeah,
they traded for him last year with Toronto.
I hear you.
And Carlo.
I just think. I love the Carlo deal. I never was a big fan. I think for his body size, he didn't play tough enough defense. I also think the deal for Coyle, brought back this kid Zellers. Maybe he'll come up. But I got a couple of minutes, and I want to grab one thing on Trump. But our next caller is a big fan of the San Jose Sharks, and you've been talking a lot about Celebrini. Was a big photograph in your article on Sunday. Our good friend Mark is going to join us in a second. The Sharks and Celebrini are the real thing. But I'll let Mark ask the question. He joins us from San Francisco. Mark, you're next with Kevin Paul DuPont of the Boston Globe. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Kevin, I'll tell you, this Celebrini's taken this Bay Area by storm. I mean, we've got the Warriors, we've got the Giants, we've got the 49ers, but hockey's always kind of been in the background. But this kid is so good. He's really taken the NHL and the Bay Area by storm here. It's not only him. He's got some great players because Mike Greer's done an incredible job of rebuilding this team. And it's really exciting. Eklund's good. You got Will Smith. You're going to have Messina eventually show up. But really exciting in the NHL right now.
Kevin?
I don't disagree. Yeah, no, I don't disagree. And being a BU guy myself, as far as Celebrini goes, why be surprised?
There you go.
But,
there's a lot of them.
No, but
there's a lot of them.
He's a real talent, and right now at the moment he's on track for 100 points. Actually, he's on track for better than 100 points, which is amazing for as young as he is. For a team that is not a mature team by any sense, as we know, he is. I'm glad he's on the Olympic team. He is the real deal, and I'm glad to see it. He's part of that. We're always talking about kids who are going to be the future of the league. Right now, I'd say he's a league talent right now. He's sort of, in my mind, sort of the Makar of his day. Of course, Makar is a defenseman, so it's different. But
right. I think he's
for
fantastic.
His age, experience, talent, difference maker, all of that. Go ahead.
Thank you for the call, Mark. Appreciate it. Just 15, 20 seconds here. We got an Olympic coming up. The whole Trump thing. I mean, how does the world look at this with the United States right now and the position they're in? They're going and invading countries. What happened yesterday on the streets of Minneapolis? I mean, how will the Olympic thing, because the whole world is there and the whole world is watching the 68 line. Give me your thought. I got 30 seconds.
Well, I don't know how the rest of the world views it necessarily, but you've seen in recent days Germany, the Germans really denouncing Trump. France to a degree, the fact that the games are in Italy. So it's going to be interesting to see if there's a real anti-Yank sentiment. It wouldn't surprise me. You and I will be watching hockey. Of course, at the moment, they don't even have the rink built. So that's
I know.
My prediction my prediction there is it's not so much that there might be some uncomfortable seats or people sitting on cement. The issue in my mind, Jeff, is what's going to be the integrity of that ice. Because if that's
the whole
ice,
thing.
and
Kevin
very
Paul
well
DuPont, I
could be.
appreciate it, my friend. Be safe in your travels. We'll look forward to talking to you very soon. Thanks, Kevin. We'll be right back.
Did you know that driving under the influence of marijuana is illegal? Driving high will get you a DUI. And if you're wondering if law enforcement can tell you're driving high, well, everyone else can. Friends?
I can tell you drove high.
Parents?
I can tell when you drive high.
Relatives?
I can tell. You drove here high, didn't you?
So what makes you think law enforcement can't?
I can tell.
If you feel different, you drive different. Drive high, get a DUI. Paid for by NHTSA.
2 guys drove to work. Neither guy wore a seatbelt. One guy got a ticket. One guy didn't. The same 2 guys drove home. One guy wore his seatbelt. One guy didn't. One guy made it home. The guy not wearing his seatbelt didn't. Don't risk it. Click it or ticket. Paid for by NHTSA.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough. But if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. Encourage them to see a doctor or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. The Alzheimer's Association provides care, support, and research to help you take control of the situation with your family and manage the disease together. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. Visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
And we're live here outside the Perez family home, just waiting for the... And there they go, almost on time this morning. Mom is coming out the front door strong with a double-arm kid carry. Looks like Dad has the bags. Daughter is bringing up the rear. Oh, but the diaper bag wasn't closed. Diapers and toys are everywhere. Ooh, but Mom has just nailed the perfect car seat buckle for the toddler. And now the eldest daughter, who looks to be about 9 or 10, has secured herself in the booster seat. Dad zips the bag closed, and they're off. But looks like Mom doesn't realize her coffee cup is still on the roof of the car. And there it goes. Oh, that's a shame. That mug was a fam favorite.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Just nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are buckled correctly in the right seat for their age and size. Learn more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Supporting the middle class. This is the Jeff Santos Show.
.33 past the hour. It is the Jeff Santos Show. What has been a long week with all the travesty of this past week with Venezuela, and of course yesterday, last 48 hours, about what happened to Miss Good. And as Alan Grayson said, it's not a good day in America. And you know, it's so sad that this is how people will look at America. And I mentioned to Kevin, you know, to get his thoughts, Kevin Paul DuPont, as we go to the Olympics in early February. I think it starts around the 10th or so. About 3 weeks, the NHL shuts down, and, you know, they're going to be Americans and Swedes and Finns and the Czechs, and of course, Canada. I believe the Russians can participate. I'm not sure on that if there's a ban from the IOC, but, and of course, the Americans. And, you know, we're not presenting the best. I mean, we're presenting the best athletes, you know, who were fantastic. But the leader, people are going to look and say, the United States of Trump. So this is how it becomes, an embarrassment. What is he going to do? Go over to Italy and build a rink? And charge Italy for it? It's just so beneath the American spirit. And this is how it goes into the world of sports, the world of entertainment. He took over the Kennedy Center at Trump Dome or whatever. And this is how he's going to play it. And he's got a lot of athletes are, bamboozled, or they just want to make the money themselves and go along with it in some sports. But this is where we are, and it has to change, and it has to change as soon as possible, because this is out of control in so many ways, whether we're talking about civil liberties and the ICE Gestapo groups, or whether talking about what happened, as Greg Palast talked about. This was all basically a deflection because of the Epstein stuff. It's about oil, putting money in his pocket. It's not about helping the people in Venezuela. It's not about helping Americans with lower, oil prices. Come on now. There's most Wall Street insiders who were meeting with the president today, or I should say oil executives who were meeting with him. Those are also part of the Wall Street world. This is going to take many, many years because, as Greg Palast pointed out, it was a older levels that Maduro had that he inherited from Chavez. And now we have a situation where we have a decrepit system. Now, seemingly this Ms. Rodriguez, who Greg Palast has interviewed and knows a little bit, seems to be qualified. But is she going to have her hands tied by Trump and the Singer guy who's tied to the Secretary of State Rubio? I mean, what is this? So there's all of these things that are really percolating here, and none of it benefits the American middle class, working class person who's spending $14 for a Dunkin' Donuts pound of coffee when it used to be $7. So we're having some issues getting a hold of Mark Taylor Canfield here. I'm going to open up the phone lines at 833-545-5333. And hopefully we can get Mark there. There is communication, Jalen, that he is, getting to his computer. I'm thinking he was in a meeting of sorts. So if he can try him again, hopefully we can get Mark, to the video screen. So hopefully that is the case. Just to add one more thing here. One of the things that we're going to be watching over the next couple of weeks here is, again, how the Democrats, mobilize around where people are. I mentioned the Olympics for another reason too. This is something that's going to galvanize a lot of people, a lot of men, and women too. But sports is a big part of this. This weekend is going to be a big deal. I would like to see if the Democrats, whether it's the DCCC level or the DNC or whatever, they should be running ads. They should be talking about the fact that this man is an embarrassment. You have to be able to communicate that message where people are. And a credit to the Republicans over the years. I mean, in the World Series in 2022, they were running against Biden, and they were running, the people are coming. They showed the same video over and over again of 100 people running across the border. I don't know where the tape was. They lie all the time anyways, the Republicans, but that's what they do. And of course, that narrative gets into the minds of sports fans who are, having a couple of beers, not necessarily, oh, look what they're doing. Look what they're doing. So that's what happens. That's why it's important for Democrats to take advantage of this in this football weekend, as well as all the way up to the Super Bowl. And then, of course, the Olympics. It goes back to back. Just be smart. Smart guys. All right. I think we've reached Mark Taylor Canfield. Of course, the Renaissance man of the Jeff Santos Show. He is, of course, the executive director of Democracy Watch News. fantastic musician, and of course, the Renaissance man. MTC, good to have you, my friend. I know this is a somber week with what has happened in Minnesota. So, I understand if you don't have the music that you may want to play in normal days, but, I wouldn't mind it either because it's always great to have that intro for MTC. Your call, my friend, however you want to do it. I love it.
I do have a new guitar,
I love
Jeff.
it.
Check this out. This is a custom-made
fantastic.
guitar invented by my friend Will, who's kind of an impresario here. He puts on a lot of house parties and rock and roll concerts, festivals, and this is something he built, and I love it.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Wow.
It's
What's the last name?
I
So
waited-
what is it going to be? What's it going to be called?
What is this going to be called? The guitar?
Yeah, what the guitar is going to have a name like the Fender. I mean, what is this dude's name? Or what is he going to call it?
This guitar?
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that. I'll try. I'll think about that. I hadn't really decided it.
I'll be his
I
marketing
mean, I'm sure
guy.
they have. Yeah, but it's a one of a kind. I mean, it's a custom guitar
Yeah.
that he built basically, and then Reanimated Music, which is the reanimated trading musician here in Seattle, the best used record store in the whole city. I kept bugging them for 2 months. Every day I'd go, well, not every day, but every week I would go in and say, "Hey, is that guitar ready?" And they're like, "Well, we're still working on it." I'm like, "Well, when is it going to be ready?" "Well, we're still working on it." And finally, the last time I went in, just after the New Year, I just put some money down on the counter and I said, "Look, I want that guitar, okay?" And they said, "You deserve to have this guitar. You should have this guitar." So I did finally get it, and it plays like a dream. It just has that amazing rock sound. I don't know how well you can hear it.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah.
I feel like I could play Nirvana, Soundgarden,
Yeah.
House Change, anything on the guitar. It's got the sound I've been looking for, which is kind of that Billy Gibbons, ZZ Top, crunchy electric guitar sound. That's my favorite.
It's a Cascadian
So how are you doing,
sound.
Jeff? How were your holidays? How are you doing?
Crazy. Yeah, it's great to see you, man. Happy New Year. Well, I mean, obviously, back from vacation, which was good. It was actually too short. Still have a lot of things to do. But nonetheless, it was good stuff. Hey, this is an awful week in American history. First, the Venezuela thing over the weekend, and of course, what happened Miss Good over the last 48 hours. I just think, we were talking with Kevin Paul DuPont just before you, Greg Palast before him. I mean, the world, it looks at us, as obviously they look at us with disgust. I mean, why wouldn't you? And, I mean, I got the American flag. I'm very proud to be an American, but I look at where we are right now and, who wants to be friends with a bully, who kills his own people and goes in and takes over other countries and kills 100 people there. And, it's no big deal. Another day. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I keep wishing everybody Happy New Year, despite the crazy man in the White House. That's what I put as a caveat to all of my
That's a good way to do it.
greetings. Yeah, because, I mean, the more and more I look at it, I know Greg has the background on what's going on with Rubio and his billionaire friend trying to get the oil. But part of it, there is this American hegemony kind of thing that's been going on for a long time, or U.S. hegemony, where we want to control all the oil and, we are the big bad boy on the block. But there's also an element of this that just keeps coming back to me that the guy's kind of, I mean, one thing that would explain a lot of this is he is suffering from dementia. Because I'm
there's no
hearing
doubt.
him say things.
Mentally ill. No, we talked about this yesterday with Jim Roosevelt.
Yeah. It's not good. So I hope that everyone who didn't show up to vote last time learned their lesson. Back in the early 20th century,
November
we had 80%
26th.
voter turnout. Yeah, when was the last time we had 80% voter turnout? So even if you didn't vote for the guy, the fact that you didn't show up at the polls, you're going to have to take some responsibility for that. And in this coming year, you better show up at the polls. I mean, there is some hope. By the way, I loved your segments with Herb Boyd and Greg Palast. Very good guests. I always love your guests. And so that's great. I've been in the recording studio. That's kind of my focus right now, is recording on my songs. So I've been working really heavily for doing all night sessions and coming home at 5 o'clock in the morning after recording all night. Just, this is why I'm half asleep today, but which is, been good for me psychologically, I think, during this period, because when I woke up to the press briefing last weekend, with Trump, telling everybody that he just kidnapped Maduro. I mean, I thought I was living in another world again, but that happens over and over with this guy. So I guess none of us should be surprised. I do have that article, I think I'm going to upload today on social media, that I wrote on April Fool's Day last year about his plans to invade Alpha Centauri, which I would not put past him at this point. I mean, he does have his space command, So, I mean, it's been crazy. And all I can tell people is hang on for better times. And we got to have faith. We got to have hope. We got to stick together. We need solidarity for sure. Programs like yours, people like Greg Palast and other folks that I work with, we all need to be very clear. Democracy Watch News, we all need to be very clear about what's going on. Don't mince words. Don't pretend that you don't realize what's happening. Just be straightforward about it. And if he comes after your news organization, well, that's part of the price you pay to be a journalist. I just saw a movie, a great movie. I highly recommend it, with Kate Blanchett and Robert Redford, called Truth. And it's about what happened to Dan Rather when he was reporting on George W. Bush going AWOL from the National Guard.
Yes.
They ended up firing Mary Mape. And then they also, and then Rather, who I looked up to as an icon, and I've taken a journalism course from him, he stepped down. So that's what happens. And it seems like the scenario is also continuing with some of the major media in this country who are backing down and giving in. We saw what happened with 60 Minutes on the prison.
And the whole El Salvador thing.
El Salvador. So disappointing for me as a journalist to see that, knowing that we're already ranked 57th in the world in terms of press freedom on the World Press Freedom Index. What do you think it's going to look like next year, Jeff? It's going to be terrible.
Over 100.
I'm going to be
tell you that. I mean, it's an embarrassment. The America of today is an embarrassment. Embarrassment to the world, embarrassment to people who fought for it. And it has to change. And I think the question is now, how do Democrats make that implement change? Can they get a couple of members of House Republican, Massey, Bacon, that they've worked with in the past, get them to be Democrats, make the Speaker Jeffries, and move forward, incrementally, then win back the Senate and add on to the House in November? I mean, they have to have a strategy, and they got to be out there, and they got to be utilizing the energy that Mondani had in New York City and your new mayor in Seattle, and at the same time work, around the largest governor of the largest state in the country, in Gavin Newsom. And together, we have something. You have a progressive, agenda that, brings the idea of single-payer health care. We had a congressman on from Massachusetts, a former Clinton guy, in Jim McGovern, and he talked about the idea for single-payer, and sick and tired of all this nonsense. The same thing with education. Gavin Newsom's predecessor was Jerry Brown. His father was the one that gave Californians a free university. Now, you know what it costs to go to Berkeley, Mark? According to our good friend Alan Minsky, who lives in California, grew up in San Francisco, $48,000 a year to go to a state school, a very good one, but it's still a public university. That means that Stanford is over 100,000. I can imagine Harvard probably is too, or close to it. This is insane. And
only elite, wealthy people.
Too many
are going
people
to
are like, oh, well, that's just the way it is.
No, education. I mean, I sang that song over the holidays, the 12 days of Christmas, about affordable, free press for the people, good, affordable health care, free college education. I mean, there are these issues that we've been talking about for years and that are on the agendas of people like Mamdani and here, Katie Wilson, our new Democratic Socialist mayor. And I do want to talk about her for a second. Yeah, but they are not on the national level. So I have people telling me, well, tell Katie to stop this or stop that. I'm like, well, she's a mayor. What can Jacob Frey do except try to kick, ICE out of Minneapolis? He's not a governor even. He's not a mayor. He's a mayor. He has local jurisdiction. Yeah, he can make those phone calls to the governor. He can make those phone calls to the White House, but he does not have the power that supposedly our legislators in the U.S. Congress are supposed to have. I'm hoping that Reuters' next a breaking news group there is right when they say that the Democrats may flip the House before the general election next year.
Yeah.
That would be
Well, they
a big
could.
step
Like
forward.
those two guys could
Mark
potentially
Kelly
go.
was talking
Bacon.
about that. Yeah, Mark Kelly was talking about that when he was on with Jon Stewart the other day, which is an amazing segment. People should definitely check that out. But this is going on left and right. And here I am, while I'm on the phone with you, I'm getting a text message from someone who's very dear to me and my friends. And she got interrogated by ICE for 2 hours and was treated like a criminal. And I'm just, it's so gut wrenching, to be trying to do the right thing and see all these people in our government and in these agencies doing the wrong thing. I mean, somehow we got to come around from all of this. And I think that Katie Wilson is one example of a grassroots political campaign that can actually beat the big money people, which she did, and maybe change things. I went to her inauguration ceremony. It was very unusual. It was not a traditional swearing in ceremony. She was sworn in by a woman that people call the transit fairy, who's this elderly woman who has been really outspoken about advocating for transit on the county and city level for years. One of the main speakers was a representative from the Nicholsville homeless camp here in Seattle. So Katie is stepping outside of the typical Google, Microsoft, Boeing crowd and going for grassroots organizing. I'm glad to see that. I'm also glad to see that she kind of split her administration in two ways, Jeff. So the first her first appointments were more people who are very experienced about how City Hall works, but she thinks she can work as allies. In other words, they have the experience that maybe she doesn't. Very smart move. That other half of her staff, all newbies, all people that have never been to City Hall before. They've never worked except for as an activist in NGOs and nonprofit groups. So I think that's going to be an interesting combination. You got the folks who know how to get things done and know how City Hall works. And then you also have a new group of very idealistic people who are not going to stand for the past, compromises on things like housing and affordability in the city. I mean, people are fed up with it. It's time. I don't care how, many jobs Google and Boeing is providing here. If you can't afford to live here, what's the point?
Well,
and
exactly.
That's kind of where we're at right now.
You're kicking people out that, that make a difference in the art community, in music. Look, I gotta tell you, our friend Bruce Springsteen is out there, stating the facts. And I look at him, as sort of, Woody Guthrie of our time now. And, when he comes out and he criticizes Trump, that's the art community. That's the music community. That's the people who care about community. Don't forget, as you know, he's done a lot of things with the job food banks across America. I remember going to his concerts just a few years ago, and he would always, give out the address, email address, whatever, website address of the food banks in the region, wherever he was, in this case, Boston. To me, he cares. And you get another guy who basically just gives you the middle finger all the time, who happens to be the occupant in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But, you're in the world of music, and you're fantastic at it. And at the same time, you're an activist, which is why we call you the Renaissance Man of the Jeff Santos Show. And, the fact is that, when you get people like Trump and others in his Gestapo world, you put a damper on what is, the blooming flowers of Bruce Springsteen or of Eddie Vedder, that Seattle knows very well. All the great artists around this country, and he basically spits out at them. It's disgusting, and this is what we need to take back. That's what America's about. It's not about wealthy people and how many cars they have and how many homes they have and lifestyles of the rich and famous as it was in the 1980s. Who cares? Tax to 1% is what I say.
I suggest that people read Mary Mapes' memoir called Truth and Duty, because we have a duty to speak the truth, whether you're in the military, as Mark Kelly was trying to point out. And by the way, after 25 years, they're trying to take away his pension and his rank, but he's going to fight that all the way. Oh, by the way, Punky back there wanted to say Happy New Year to you.
Oh. How you doing, Punky? Happy New Year to you.
There she is. Yeah, we had a good time up on my friend's penthouse during the fireworks off the Space Needle. Although we couldn't see them because it was too foggy here, but we had a good time up there.
Oh, wow.
He's not a super wealthy person, but he does have a really nice apartment up above the city on the top of that tower. And then we spent a lot of time at the Seattle Center, and people were really celebrating and enjoying the lifestyle here in Seattle. Great fireworks, great music. There were bands playing. DJs were projecting light shows on the International Fountain. And I can see that people in Seattle really enjoy living here, really enjoy our culture, and are glad to be here. But when you look at what's happening in a lot of the rest of the country and what's happening in Washington, D.C., it really makes people nervous, and they start to wonder about the future of our country. I can tell you this. We watched the Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Awards, and Soundgarden was inducted. So we've got multiple bands from Seattle. Most of the grunge bands have now been inducted into the Hall of Fame, and Soundgarden got their chance. And I was really impressed, Jeff, for two reasons. One, I'm really tired of all the bling and the glitz that goes with Hollywood award shows and all the, people with gold teeth and, huge
exactly.
Outfits.
It's just annoying.
Cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. I like the fact that Seattle is still very authentic in that we don't try to oversell things. We don't try to hype things. We just do it. And Soundgarden gets up there looking like anybody else in T-shirts and blue jeans and does their thing. And then their bass player, Yamamoto, who is Japanese American, told the crowd, he was the first person to accept the award. And he said, my mother was interred during World War II because she was Japanese. I'd hoped we had gotten beyond that. And he gave a big shout out to his black and brown brothers and sisters around the world and said, we hear you, we're here for you, and we're not gonna give up. We're gonna keep fighting for our rights. So I really appreciated the fact that a Seattle band went on stage, said something political, and got people riled up, because that's part of our job, I think, up here in Seattle, is to forget about all the Hollywood glam and glitz and just do what we love to do and be authentic about it to the rest of the world. And if we keep doing that, there's going to be more bands inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But you'll notice that the bands that are here don't, like I said, don't overhype themselves. They don't drive around in Lamborghinis to show off their wealth. None of that is happening here. The people in Seattle are very much on the down low in that regard. And I really appreciate that. We are so happy. We feel special because we get to go see local bands at local clubs that nobody in LA or New York is ever going to hear about, but are fantastic. We don't care about the band playing
including you, my friend.
Arena that's got, millions of dollars behind them. We care about the band that is playing in our local club, the Showbox or the Crocodile that has, day jobs working as baristas or whatever. Those are the people that we actually admire the most, because it's not easy to do that. So I'm glad that Seattle stood up during the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremonies, and creds to Soundgarden. Brandy Carlisle, our other local talent, sang Black Hole Sun, and she rocked. Oh my God, she sounded so great. So I guess now she's gone from being a folk artist to being a country artist, because she was also on the Country and Western Awards show out of Nashville a few months ago, and also now a rock and roll artist. So I really admire the fact that she can cover so many different genres. That's very innovative in itself, that you can branch out that way and not, find yourself really labeled into one kind of music or another. So great job, Brandy. They sounded great on stage. They're playing all the old Marshall Stack equipment that we use, the Mega Boogie amps and stuff. So cool to see that. And I was very excited.
That's
so
awesome.
There are some good things going on.
No doubt about it. Hey man,
yeah.
I just want to say, thanks for being you, and you're part of that local music scene in Seattle too, and you're fantastic. Hey, these are difficult days, but I know you and your friends are going to make it better for us. I got to run right now, my friend, but thank you, and I love that new guitar too.
Yes, I'll play more next time. All right, Jeff. Love you. Take care.
Thank you, Mark. All the best, my friend. Hey, I want to thank Jalen for producing an amazing show. We had so many interruptions today with the feed from Greg Palace in Portugal and all that. Did a fantastic job all week long, and we look forward to having her back in the coming days. Folks, this is a tough week, but, when the tough get going, you get going. So, I screwed that up, but anyways, you know what I mean. The fact is that we need to stay together. We will. Back on Monday, GW and all that. Keep on fighting, folks, peacefully. Have a wonderful weekend. My name is Jeff Santos, and right now it's my time to say I Gotta go.